Waiting on Councilmember Abadamas. Is she having a problem logging in? Do we know? Oh, there she is. Okay, very good. All right. Everybody is present. Then we'll get started. Call the Joint City Council Fire Protection District Board meeting for June 1st, 2021. This year we're on the amended agenda. We'll call the meeting to order. Roll call, please.
Board Councilmember Miriam Abdamos. Here. Board Councilmember David Oral.
Here.
Board Councilmember Pierre Washington.
Here.
Vice Chair, Vice Mayor Mark Joseph.
Here.
Chair, Mayor Leon Garcia.
Here. Thank you. Have the flag, please, for Pledge of Allegiance. Please follow me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under
Recording in progress.
Indivisible, liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Does the clerk read the teleconference participants message?
Thank you for joining us for the June 1st, 2021 City of American Canyon City Council meeting. This meeting is being held entirely virtually in response to the COVID-19 pandemic. The format tonight will be similar to that of an in-person City Council meeting. In addition to the Zoom platform, the meeting is being broadcast on cable TV, Channel 28, on YouTube, and streamed live on the city's website. You will see the city council members on your screen along with members of city staff. All members of the public will participate in listen-only mode. Public comments is invited for non-agenda items during the public forum section of the meeting and on each agenda item. When the item you wish to speak on is called, please follow these steps to make your comment. When the mayor calls a particular item and you wish to speak on that item, click the raise hand button if joining by computer. If joining by phone, dial *9 to raise your hand. When it is your turn, I will announce your name and invite you to speak. You may see a message saying the host would like you to unmute your microphone. If you get this message, click unmute myself and begin speaking. To unmute yourself by phone, dial *6 and begin speaking. Video will not be turned on, only audio. You have up to 3 minutes to make your comments to the city council. At the end of your 3 minutes, I will ask you to conclude your comments quickly, and I will mute your audio once you're done. Please only press *9 to raise your hand for the items you wish to speak on, as the raised hand will be cleared at the end of each item. The agenda for this meeting is available on the city's council page of the city's website. As is the standard practice, community members are allowed to comment one time on each agenda item. All votes at tonight's meeting will be taken by roll call. We ask your patience and understanding when there are technical difficulties. This concludes my introductory remarks.
Thank you. Moving on now to report on closed session confirmation of reportable action. Mr. Ross? Mr. Ross with us? Not this moment. We'll come back to him. Moving on, city clerk's announcement pursuant to Government Code 54952.3. It is as stated in the agenda.
Mr. Mayor, may I just pause for a second? I think Mr. Ross asked us when to be done. I don't know if anybody notified him that we were done with closed.
Oh,
Somebody could reach out to him.
good thought, Councilor Rowe.
Yeah.
Recording in progress.
Anything from closed session to be reported, Mr. Ross?
At the moment, I'm going to say there is no reportable action, but that I will accomplish a written report consistent with the provisions of Government Code Section 54957.1.
And Mr. Ross, you asked for a time. We concluded at 6:33 p.m.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
So I will do the report under the authority that I just cited.
Okay. Moving on to our agenda, we now on to proclamations and presentation. Item A1 this evening is a great pleasure to proclamation for Grave LGBTQ Pride Month, June 2021. We had the rainbow flag raising this morning at 8:30. That's in front of City Hall. Small group gathered. Note there were horns tooted on the highways. People were passing by, so I take that as a sign of support. To the proclamation. City of American Canyon Proclamation, LGBTQ Pride Month, June 2021. Whereas the City of American Canyon has a diverse lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer, LGBTQ community and is committed to supporting visibility, dignity, respect, safety, and equity for all people. I think we have a little interference in the background there. And whereas various advancements have been made with respect to equal rights for the LGBTQ community throughout the nation, from the onset of the Stonewall riots in June 28, 1969, to the landmark Supreme Court decision guaranteeing marriage equality in all 50 states in 2015. Whereas despite this extraordinary progress, the LGBTQ community still faces discrimination simply for being who they are. Many LGBTQ people do not always feel a part of our community due to invisibility, isolation, discrimination, bullying, and fear. LGBTQ people face higher rates of violence, sexual assault, and mental illness, and are 3 times more likely to end their own lives. Furthermore, LGBTQ people of color experience even more violence and discrimination. Research has shown that providing support and acceptance toward LGBTQ people greatly reduces the health disparities and mental health risks experienced by this community. And whereas LGBTQ people are a vibrant, important part of our community, proving that love is love regardless of sexual orientation, gender identity, or gender expression, and that no person should be judged for it by anything other than the content of their character. It is important to come together to show our LGBTQ community that they are supported as equals in the city of American Canyon, and to work together to reduce discrimination and adverse treatments against LGBTQ people. And whereas our community can only be made stronger by embracing and celebrating diversity, affirming and standing with our neighbors, and making our community safer, more welcoming, and inclusive. And whereas many cities and counties across the United States recognize and celebrate June as LGBTQ Pride Month, a symbol of month in which LGBTQ people and allies come together to celebrate diversity and progress made towards equality, while continuing to push towards greater equity and belonging for LGBTQ people. Now, therefore, be it resolved that I, Leon Garcia, Mayor, do hereby proclaim June 2021 as LGBTQ Pride Month and urge my fellow residents and city leaders to join in this annual celebration, promoting visibility of the connection between American Canyon's LGBTQ people and allies for the greater good of our entire city. Item A2, proclamation, appreciation of Andrea Clark. City of American Canyon proclamation.
Mayor, I'm sorry to interrupt. We had a couple of guests that we wanted to
Oh,
introduce.
please.
Apologize for that, Ann and Jade. A couple of
Good to
guests.
have you here.
did the Proclamation, you may not have seen them.
I did not see that. Well, I was
You were hiding.
invitation for that. Very good. Good to have you here. Good evening.
Go ahead, Jade.
Okay, hi there. So first of all, I would like to thank everyone for having us and for the honor of accepting the proclamation. I think it's a huge step for our city. I was in the first graduating class of the high school, and I witnessed the amazing growth of this community, but I felt like there was that support and acknowledgement missing. And so I feel like that's sometimes what our youth needs. It's just that loud and proud support. So thank you.
Well, thank you. I think we all recognize the importance of support and inclusion. So thank you for being here this evening. Another comment?
Yeah, just really another thank you, Mayor Garcia and City Council members for the proclamation, for taking a stand and being out about your support for the LGBTQ community. You've been visible all year with your support for the LGBTQ community and communities of color, and I value you as a role model for the rest of the Valley and everywhere as far as standing up for your community members. And I also just wanted to say at the very end of your proclamation, remembering that Pride is not only about celebrating, it's really important to celebrate, but it's also important to continue moving towards progress, pushing forward, speaking up against what's happening right now, the attack against trans youth and trans people in general, and just being part of that voice that's standing up against that is what Pride's also about. So thank you very much for
Thank you.
letting me say that.
And when certainly we all appreciate your role in leadership capacity on this.
Thank you.
You carry the message forward. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
Good to have you here this evening. Do we have any other speakers on this?
Chris James have his hand raised. Hi, Chris.
Having a problem connection?
So
May have been that he
disappeared.
just raised his, he's still an attendee. I think he may have just raised his hand accidentally.
Okay.
Or show support?
Yeah, that's a possibility too.
Okay. If there's no one else, then we thank you very much for this evening. Please continue the good work.
Thank you.
Proclamation recognizing Andrea Clark and appreciation of her faithful service to the city of American Canyon, June 1st, 2021. I see we have her with us. Okay, good. Whereas Andrea Clark, Affordable Housing Representative at the Housing Authority of the City of Napa, has improved housing choices for American Canyon residents for over 14 years. And whereas Andrea Clark's housing services include community development block grants and other grant applications, countless first-time home buyers and home improvement loan applications, monitoring affordable housing agreements every year, ensuring appropriate sale and resale of price-restricted homes, Section 8 housing services, hosting home ownership workshops, implementing the city's local preference policy, and many other valuable services. And whereas Andrea Clark prepared numerous grant applications that awarded the city over $5 million in affordable housing funds for the first-time homebuyer loans and homeowner repair loans. And whereas those housing programs enjoyed by the citizens of American Canyon would not be possible were not for Andrea's specialized skill and knowledge combined with a cheerful, diligent, can-do attitude. And whereas American Canyon wishes Andrea Clark a happy and fulfilling retirement. Now, therefore, I, Mayor Leon Garcia, and the Council of American Canyon, do hereby acknowledge and appreciate Andrea Clark's faithful service to the city of American Canyon. Thank you so much, and all the best at your retirement. Good to have you here.
Thank you very much.
We're going to miss you.
We are, Mayor. I just have a couple of words. It's a little bit unusual for us to be offering proclamations from plays of other jurisdictions, but Andrew was very much a part of our organization and part of our housing programs. A retirement is well-deserved and simply irreplaceable. And I don't know all the things that we're gonna have to do to continue to work with Napa and the Napa's Housing Authority, but her spirit and her can-do attitude, as the proclamation noted, were simply irreplaceable. So we'll continue our relationship with the Housing Authority, but we're gonna definitely miss Andrea. We wish her the best. And the next item actually in our agenda today is actually a presentation on our annual report from the Housing Authority. So thank you, Andrea, and well deserved. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Appreciate it very much. You want me to go ahead and jump ahead here? Okay.
Okay.
If I can find my presentation. There we go. All right. Well, thank you for letting me come and give you our annual report on our housing services. I do have my coworker, Jonathan Sakamoto, is joining us this evening too. I think you'll see him in the group. And like we said, we're here to provide you with a brief report of the services that the Housing Authority does provide. The city does contract with the Housing Authority to provide services. We're in the middle of a 2-year agreement, and we provide many different types of services, technical assistance, and as mentioned so nicely in that proclamation, the monitoring and things that we do. And also, all the grant management that we do for you. In the area of countywide activity, Section 8 rental assistance is our main function there. And the Housing Authority does administer about 15, just a little over 15 million in grant funds that we receive from HUD to operate this program. We issued about 1,156 vouchers this year to use on market rate units anywhere countywide. Currently, there's 128 vouchers being used in American Canyon. That's about 11% of all of the vouchers that we do have. And in addition to that, there's 34 project-based vouchers that are being used at the Valley View Senior Apartments, and an additional 17 VASH vouchers. These are for the chronically homeless veterans. Additionally, we have some funding for what's called our Family Self-Sufficiency Program. And in the program, families are counseled and provide education and job training so they can be eventually come off of government assistance. Currently, there's 5 families in American Canyon that are participating in that program. We have 7 families or households that are receiving the special, what we call NEDS vouchers. These are vouchers for non-elderly disabled persons and or persons or households that have disabled persons as part of their household. And then there's 16 FUPS vouchers or Family Unification Program vouchers. This program is just a great program that is through the county health and welfare department, and it helps families obtain permanent housing if they've had some type of situation where the children have been removed from the home. Many times they need to be able to stabilize their housing to be able to get their children back into their family unit. It also helps teenagers or young adults that are coming out of the foster care program to be able to obtain housing. Under our rental assistance program, each year the participants do meet with housing specialists annually to go over their benefits and to recertify income. We have inspectors that go into these units annually and inspect the units to make sure that they are healthy and safe environment for them to live in. Also in the countywide services, we work in the homeless services and with projects. And recently we were awarded, the Housing Authority was awarded 44 emergency housing vouchers from the American Rescue Act. These are going to be used countywide to help homeless or those that are at risk of being homeless or that are fleeing domestic violence or human trafficking. We'll be working in conjunction with the Napa County Health and Human Services, Abode Services, and News, the Napa Emergency Women's Shelter, to be able to issue these vouchers. We also represent the city at the Continuum of Care, our monthly meetings. And this group then is comprised of the Napa County Health and Human Services and other agencies, nonprofit agencies that do serve the homeless. And HUD just recently renewed all of our grants for the Napa County and a little over $775,000. And we use these funds for rental assistance and case management. Next, I wanted to tell you about our base housing services. And in that, this is where we go in and we are monitoring the city's regulatory agreements for the for sale below market rate units and also the rental units. And so annually we do on the for sale side, we confirm that they are still owner occupying the units, that they have their property insurances being paid, and that they are carrying homeowners insurance. On the rental side, we confirm with the property managers that the income of the tenants that are occupying the affordable units are within the regulatory agreement and the rents are within the regulatory agreements, and that they are complying with the city's local housing preference policy. And this year, we've spent a lot of time helping and providing some technical assistance to the village at Vintage Ranch as they are now leasing up the affordable units. Also, we conduct the annual monitor for all of the first-time homebuyer loans that we've made, and all the rehabilitation or the homeowner repair program loans. Those require that those units remain owner occupied. So we're again confirming occupancy, and we've responded to many loan payoff inquiries this year and refinance requests, with the interest rates on the first mortgage loans being still so historically low. There's been a lot of activity in that, and we even processed one loan amendment for the Vineyard Place homes. Additionally, we worked with Satellite Affordable Housing with the Valley View Apartments to conduct a new waitlist lottery. And we launched an online application process for that. And currently there's 89 households or applicants that are on the wait list for the Valley View Apartments. Under some additional housing services, this is where we then operate and administer the city's home improvement program and/or the first-time homebuyer program. And this year we've received many applications. We've inspected properties. We've completed 6 of the rehabilitation loans. We have 2 that are currently in process. They should be completed this month. And the home grant, the 2016 home grant does expire in July. And so we anticipate all funds in that grant will be expended. And then in our home improvement program, or the homeowner repair program, I just wanted to share some before and after pictures with you. COVID-19 made it challenging for us to operate this homeowner repair program. Many homeowners were just reluctant to have workers come into their home, but we did, like I said, shared with you, we did have 6 loans that we completed. This one I wanted to share with you. This is from 2525 Flosden Road. They had some major code violations that they needed to have taken care of. There was some kind of lean-to that was attached to the unit, and he needed to get the code violations taken care of along with the roof repair I showed you, or he was going to get evicted from the park. So we were able to repair his roof and the leaky ceiling and take down that lean-to, repair and replace the heating and air conditioning unit. And he was then able to clear all of the code violations. And so the homeowner was just so excited, and he wanted us to share with you that without the program assistance that he received from the city, he would have been evicted from his mobile home and he would have been homeless. He just did not have the wherewithal to fix those homes. We were able to keep that low income senior in his home and also improve that living environment for him. And additionally, in our housing services, we then do apply for grants for the city. And in 2019, we applied for a new home grant, and the city was awarded $1 million to continue the down payment assistance program and the homeowner repair program. We are awaiting right now for the state to issue the grant contracts. Those have been slowly coming out. It's 2021, and we applied for that grant in 2019. So your guess is as good as mine when that contract's going to come. But also, we applied on behalf of the city for a Cal Home Disaster Assistance Grant, and the city was awarded $2.2 million. And this grant is supposed to assist those homeowners that were either economically or physically affected by the 2017 and the 2018 fires. recently, we worked with the state to be able to better define what does it mean to be economically or affected by the fires. And we've been able to include not only increase of rent, but loss of wages or loss of work due to the fire. So we did have some families up valley that, some of the farm workers that were affected by that, and some of the vineyard workers or winery workers. So we have just recently got that approved by the state, and we're going to begin some new marketing and outreach for that grant. We've maintained our grant financial records for the city, for the home, CDBG and CalHome and Begin grants. We just recently received a loan payoff for the Begin grant and under the Begin, and we've got another one that's coming in next week. So that'll replenish that pot, and maybe we'll be able to issue another first-time homebuyer loan next year with those funds. Lastly, my housing manager and myself were available throughout the year to provide any kind of technical assistance and on any kind of housing issues, and as requested by the city staff. And I've enjoyed the excellent working relationship that I have had with the city and the city staff. It's been my pleasure to serve you all, and rest assured my colleagues will be continuing the excellent service that we have provided you over the years. And thank you for this time this evening, and I can answer any questions you might have for me.
Well, thank you for your presentation.
You're welcome.
It's it's a lot of work there. I really appreciate it. I know one area certainly of concern in the county has also been rental assistance, and I don't know to what extent that you can report on your organization's involvement with that.
Thank you.
Do you have a program going with, or you collaborate with community cross lines with fair housing and rental assistance issues that comes in the world?
Yes, we do collaborate with them, and the city does provide some assistance to their organization.
Mm-hmm.
So we do collaborate quite a bit with them. Yes.
Very big world right now, given the pandemic and loss of employment and all.
Oh, very much so. Yes.
Yeah. So who was first?
I think David was.
Councilman Roro.
Thank you, Mrs. Clark. Congratulations on your retirement, and thank you for your service to our community for so many years. I hope you're off to a good start and enjoy it right away. I'm sure you will.
Thank you very much. Yes.
I have
my
a question around Valley View, but before I get to that, I want to thank you for the example of helping the homeowner on Flosden. With that's exactly the kind of work that you guys should be doing. The community should be supporting, and I think it's a reason why we value the relationship that we have with you. On Valley View, we opened up that with much fanfare, and it took a lot of resources. Do you have any indication of how the residents there are feeling? It seems like there's a list of plenty of people who want to possibly live there. But how's it going over there? What are you hearing? Do you know?
I have not heard directly anything. Maybe Jonathan can jump in on this one, because he was working with the rental assistance and actually helping with the lottery. So, John, do you have anything you might want to add?
Sure. Having leased up a few of the people there, all of them were extremely excited at the opportunity, and they all raved about the units themselves and how happy they were, and to be in something new and have that meant a lot to the people who got to move in there. And we've heard lots of good stories. And, the work that Kathy does with the VA to help the veterans there is very much needed and very impressive, and it keeps it a community down there. So lots of good things we've heard so far.
Have we had turnover already, or is it pretty stable overall?
I haven't been with them in a little while since leasing the original core group up, so I couldn't tell what with turnover. I'd have to talk to the Section 8 staff and the voucher staff.
Okay, thank you.
Vice Mayor Joseph.
Yes, I would ditto Councilmember Oro's remarks. Andrea, congratulations on your retirement. Thank you for the years helping us out. In looking at your report, I was taken aback, frankly, that, well, the Valley View wait list at 89 wasn't that surprising. It's an incredible complex, and it makes sense that everybody would want to be in there if they could. But the Section 8 wait list is only, I think, 6, your report indicated, and that seemed peculiar. I always thought there was these huge wait lists. But I was talking to a gentleman yesterday who said his son got a Section 8 voucher, and apparently the way it works is the voucher's only good for so many dollars. And if rent is as crazy as it is, that voucher may not actually help you much. Can you comment on what the dynamics with Section 8 is? You know, is it a good deal or not, either for the landlord or the tenant?
Well, I think I might let John jump in on this one too, since that was his area of expertise before coming over and training with me. So yeah,
Okay.
go ahead, John.
It's partially correct. It's not a flat dollar amount that applicants or tenants receive for Section 8. It is income based, but a big part of that is based around what HUD sets as fair market rents. The Housing Authority has to determine, based on fair market rents, what it can approve for the payment standard, which is how they base part of the rent on. So as the units outpace the fair market rents based on HUD's calculations, it becomes more and more difficult for tenants to locate adequate housing. And part of that is our ongoing battle with, if we increase the payment standards to the maximum, it limits the amount of households we can help as well. So it is a delicate balancing act, and we're always struggling with the fair market rents that we get from HUD.
Okay. Well, that helps clarify the process and maybe explains why the wait list is relatively short on Section 8 versus, in our case, Valley View. Okay, thank you for the report.
Thank you.
Anything further from City Council? Well, I want to thank both of you for the service you provide for American Canyon, and particularly for you, Andrea. Your congratulations on your retirement. All the best. Can't begin to thank you enough for all the support that you have given people in American Canyon. So have a great week.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I'm sure I'll be seeing you around. I live in Napa, so I'm not going anywhere.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Thank you very much.
Stop in on your way through town.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I like going down to the Walmart down there. So you'll get my dollars, my tax
Oh, really?
dollars.
Yeah. Hey, good to hear that.
Bye-bye, everybody. Thank you.
Bye. Thank
Bye.
you. Move on in our another presentation this evening. Item for A4, Napa Youth Council on flavored tobacco prohibition.
Hi, Mayor. I'm bringing in Nancy Rivera, but there are others, so please be
Okay.
patient with me. Hi, Nancy. Nancy, can you hear me?
Sorry, I couldn't find myself. I was waiting for everybody to get in. Let me check. Okay. Do we have everybody?
I believe,
Okay, we can start. I don't see Dr. Relucio and Jessica Chapin. Oh. Okay. Okay, we're going to start. I don't see.
they're coming in, sorry,
Okay,
it's a lot.
I know, I'm so sorry.
Not in, the way they named their names are not in alphabetical order.
So if they are not here yet, we can start with the youth first.
Mhm.
So. Okay. So you want to start at Araceli?
Yeah. Hi, my name's Araceli. Hi, my name's Araceli Cantera. I'm a sophomore at New Tech. I'm kind of going to be talking about flavored tobacco and e-cigarettes. The tobacco industry has a long history of using flavored tobacco to target youth and hook the next generation of smokers for a lifetime of addiction. The possible mental health implications and possible mental health implications. The majority of youth who start experimenting with tobacco begin with flavored tobacco. These products come in a variety of flavors, including bubblegum, grape, menthol, and cotton candy. The most popular e-cigarette flavors among U.S. high school students are fruit flavors, followed by mint or menthol, followed by sweet flavors. When I moved to Napa County, it was startling to see so much e-cigarette usage among my classmates and fellow peers and how drawn to the flavors they were. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Hassan Shafi. I'm a junior at Justin Siena, and I'll be talking about the tobacco industry's marketing and what we can do to combat it. The tobacco industry constantly tries to adjust their marketing to appeal to the youth. In recent years, the industry has been using flavors to spark curiosity and mask the harshness of tobacco. Sadly, their strategy works. 97% of kids who vape use flavors. The tobacco industry uses more than 15,500 different tobacco flavors to attract youth, such as Blue Raz, Pegasus Milk, and other tempting tastes, all made with the flavor chemicals that may damage the lungs. Given the large volume of flavors directly designed to attract youth, it's not surprising that 1 in 8 California high school students currently uses a tobacco product. One way to reduce the tobacco product usage among the youth is by implementing policies. Policies that restrict the sale of flavored tobacco have the potential to curb youth tobacco use in as few as 6 months. For instance, Massachusetts saw that the use of both flavored and non-flavored tobacco significantly decreased among teens in the community once they adopted an ordinance to ban the sale of flavored tobacco products. In fact, over 107 California jurisdictions have already restricted the sale of all flavored tobacco products to protect the youth in their communities, so why can't we? We are looking forward to joining our fellow California jurisdictions and adopting this first step towards a healthier community. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Brianna Lopez. I'm a sophomore at American Canyon High School, and I'll be talking about multi-unit housing and how smoking impacts those living in them. Although California state law protects people from exposure to secondhand smoke in places like school, playgrounds, workplaces, and so on, most Californians remain unprotected from secondhand smoke in the place where they spend most of their time, their homes. In multi-unit residencies like apartment buildings and condominiums, secondhand smoke can flow through open windows and under doors, seep in between shared walls, travel along openings for pipes and wiring, and blow through shared ventilation systems. Third-hand smoke is the chemical residue that's left behind on clothes, skin, furniture, walls, and other surfaces after someone smokes. This issue greatly impacts those living in the multi-unit housing because the exposure of secondhand smoke and the mix of pollutants in third-hand smoke is toxic to humans, especially children. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Amalia and I'm a junior at American Canyon High School, and I'll be talking about how secondhand smoking affects people of color in low-income communities. In most states, the smoking rates for low socioeconomic status populations are higher than average or higher economic statuses. So low-income residents and people of color are affected by the tobacco industry the most. In the 2011 report, Tobacco Marketing in California's Retail Environment, a survey of California tobacco retailers found that Marlboro cigarette packs cost significantly less in low-income neighborhoods. The authors also found that menthol cigarettes were advertised more and cost less in African-American neighborhoods and in low-income neighborhoods. I grew up in low-income neighborhoods as a kid and found myself seeing someone smoking everywhere I turned. Also, growing up, I lived in apartments my whole life until I was 14. At that same age, I was diagnosed with anxiety and asthma. There is no physical proof, but I do believe that in the 14 years of my life living in apartments, that I experienced secondhand smoking, which caused me to develop these problems, which affect me a lot. Also, to back myself up, I did some research which shows that exposure to secondhand smoke causes multiple health problems in infant and young children, including ear infections, respiratory symptoms like coughing, wheezing, or shortness of breath. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Mackenzie Truittson, and I'm going into my third year at the Napa Valley College. The benefits of a smoke-free multi-unit housing and elements of a strong policy are very important. A smoke-free multi-unit housing ordinance provides significant benefits. It can reduce public exposure to secondhand smoke, minimize fire risk, provide economic benefits to landlords, and improve overall quality of life for residents. It is important to include in a smoking ban for multi-unit housing all tobacco products and marijuana, indoor and outdoor common areas, and all units, including balconies and patios. Effective implementation of a smoke-free housing law is important because it will increase compliance rates and reduce the need for active enforcement. It will help protect residents from the harms of secondhand smoke. It is also important to support people that smoke and offer ways to help them as well. Smoke-free multi-unit housing policies protect the health of everyone who lives in or visits apartment buildings. There are steps landlords can and do to take to make it easier for the residents to comply with a smoke-free policy. Some strategies include providing an extended period for tenants to prepare for the new policy, providing clear notices, connecting tenants to resources that can help them to quit or to manage their smoking, multi-step enforcement policies, and in some cases provide an outdoor designated smoking area where tenants may go to smoke, so long as smoke from the area doesn't enter non-smoking areas of the property.
Thank you. And now we'll go back to the beginning. So we'll let Jessica start.
Good evening. Thank you for allowing us the opportunity to present tonight on the work of the Napa Youth Council. I am Jessica Chapin, and I am the project director for the Tobacco Control Program at Napa County Public Health. We are funded by state tobacco taxes to carry out interventions that help make tobacco less desirable, less accessible, and less acceptable. At Public Health, we know that local laws have the power to shape environments and make big impacts on population health. So in addition to our work to educate individuals about risks associated with tobacco use, we are privileged to work alongside community members such as the Napa Youth Council to identify issues and community level solutions. Next, I'd really like to introduce Dr. Karen Reluccio, Napa County Health Officer, to provide an overview of the health impacts of tobacco.
Thank you for giving us the opportunity to present. And, you know, the youth that are in this Napa Youth Council have done a fantastic job of outlining the issues. but I'm just going to start with why we're doing this in the first place. So, as you know, smoking is a leading cause of preventable death in the United States, linked to the following diseases on this slide. And in Napa County, the pattern is the same, with cancer, heart disease, and stroke being the top 3 causes of death, of which tobacco is a major contributor. So for every person who dies of smoking, at least 30 other people live with a serious smoking-related chronic illness. And while smoking rates have declined overall, cigarette use remains higher among the LGBTQ population and people with mental illness, low socioeconomic status, and disabilities. Tobacco products have evolved rapidly. It used to, include cigarettes and cigars, but this has evolved to electronic smoking devices and vaping devices, which are popular among youth and has spurred another epidemic of nicotine addiction in our youth. E-cigarettes produce an aerosol by heating a liquid that contains a mixture of water, food-grade flavoring, nicotine, propylene glycol, which is in antifreeze, and vegetable glycerin. E-liquids also can contain THC and CBD or other drugs. Pod-based delivery systems use nicotine salts, which allow higher concentrations of nicotine to be inhaled more easily. So the active ingredient in vaping products is nicotine, and nicotine itself is a highly addictive neurotoxin that's as addictive as heroin and cocaine. Nicotine stimulates the pleasure and reward pathway in the brain and alters the brain development in adolescence and predisposes them to nicotine addiction as adults. Using nicotine can impact your cardiovascular system by making the heart beat faster and constricting your arteries because it activates your fight or flight response. And outside of all the chemicals and toxins already in cigarettes, nicotine can independently cause damage to the lungs, causing inflammation in the bronchial tubes. It could also cause increased acid reflux. Nicotine can even negatively impact reproductive organs in both males and females. And byproducts of combustion have carcinogens that decrease immune response and increase the risk of cancer. Next slide. So let's not forget that prior to the COVID-19 pandemic, we had an epidemic of the e-cigarette or vaping use associated lung injury, or EVALI. So this impacted over 2,800 people across the United States, with 95% of them needing hospitalization and almost more than half needing life support. It also caused 70 deaths, and these were in young people. Additionally, according to a study that's led by researchers at Stanford University School of Medicine, the research found that those who vaped were 5 to 7 times more likely to be infected with COVID than those that did not use e-cigarettes. So this does have impacts. And then I'm going to move on to secondhand smoke exposure, which is leading to the whole idea of why the multi-use housing was put forward. So with secondhand smoke exposure, there's just no safe level of exposure. If you can move it to the next slide, that would be great. There are 58 million Americans exposed to secondhand smoke, including 2 in 5 children. As alluded to by another Napa Youth Council member, where she talked about having asthma. So in infants and children, it could cause more respiratory ear infections. It could cause sudden infant death syndrome and asthma attacks. So what she was experiencing is absolutely what it does. And then in adult non-smokers, secondhand smoke exposure can cause heart disease, stroke, and lung cancer. I want to just address the whole issue around e-cigarette aerosols. It had been marketed by the tobacco industry as emitting harmless water vapor, but that is not the truth. It does, so people that are exposed to e-cigarette vapor absorb nicotine at levels comparable to people exposed to secondhand smoke. So in summary, the reason why the Napa Youth Council has put forth these policies is because it really has a negative impact on health, and it will shorten life expectancy unless it is addressed at a policy level. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody, for allowing us. My name is Nancy Winder Rivera, and I work for Napa County with Jessica Chapin, and together with Isadora Ash, we run the Napa Youth Council, and we just want to offer our technical assistance for any ordinance that the City of American Canyon would like to develop, and also the youth are pleased to work with the American Canyon City Council to explore policy solutions for public health issues. Thank you so much for your time, and if you have any questions, we'll be happy to answer.
Well, thank you very much for the presentation. It's certainly very important to our community here. Preponderance of healthcare workers in the Valley, I know, live in American Canyon. Certainly there's a high level of awareness of the dangers associated with tobacco and vaping. Really appreciate the student input on it. You know, that's the next generation coming along. And it's that message needs to get out there to your peers in terms of what exactly that means to them long term. So I appreciate the work you've done. Thank you very much. Questions from my council, council member Abadamus.
Nancy. Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for your hard work on this. I wanted to share something with you. So something a lot of people don't know about me is I actually grew up in a house with a smoker. My dad smoked for a very, very long time. He quit cold turkey over 20 years ago, which is something I'm very proud of. But I'm old enough to remember when he used to smoke and how he was when he quit. And he'd probably freak out if he knew that I was saying this. But my dad's always been, the best, the smartest, the strongest. The only time in my life that I ever saw my dad as weak is when he was quitting smoking. I've never seen him as weak before that. He grew up in the Middle East, and in the Middle East, many people start at a very young age. And then when they're old enough to recognize how bad it is for you, it's very hard to quit. It is probably the hardest thing to kick, or at least one of the hardest things to kick. So I really love that you guys are active and involved and engaged about such an important topic at such a young age. I know that you guys have done presentations in other cities, and you did help the city of Napa ban flavored tobacco for e-cigarettes. So can you tell us a little bit of the work that you've done and give us ideas for what we can implement? I know a lot of cities around the Bay have actually banned flavored tobacco and e-cigarettes.
Mackenzie, you want to talk about it?
I'll probably be a little bit more short and sweet than you will be, so feel free to add on. But we spent a couple of years or so working towards, getting flavored tobacco banned. That was something that, as we now understand, is quite a process to do. It really kind of came down to California changing the laws surrounding it. And then Napa just implemented it with some changes that we thought were important as well. So that was kind of the main point for us.
Jessica, there is anything you want to add?
I think I would just add, in hindsight, in working through that process, if we worked on it again in another jurisdiction, which we would very much like to do, we would put a lot more effort toward outreach to the business community and try harder to understand the business needs, because that would have saved us some time developing a policy that is a fit for the community.
That's amazing. I have a couple more questions, of course. And actually a comment. I believe in our city. So when I was first elected to the city council, I had a couple of people ask me about opening up restaurants that allowed hookah. It's been the trend for the last few years, but it's just as bad, if not worse, than cigarette smoking. Mm-hmm. And we in the city of American Canyon have an ordinance that outlaws that. We do not allow hookah or smoking inside restaurants. And you can correct me if I'm wrong, Jason, but I remember that being the answer. I have the two questions I have is one, I believe there's a myth. I don't know if it's a myth or I don't know if it's true, and I'm hoping you guys can help me. I keep on hearing that secondhand vape smoke is not as bad for you.
I think, Councilmember, your connection froze.
I believe it said that she left the call.
Oh, okay.
It was most likely due to internet connection.
I'm sure she'll jump back on. I think the gist of her comment really had to do with secondhand vape smoke and whether there was any sort of studies or what have you, as opposed to other kinds of secondhand smoke. And maybe some of our real technical people will be able to tell us that.
Jessica? Speak to, if Dr. Lucio would like to take this one, that would be great.
Yeah, there are studies that have demonstrated that the secondhand vape has as much nicotine in it as secondhand smoke. So I think that what is being inhaled is not benign water vapor. In addition, there are other products of combustion, which are some heavy metals that are also implicated in the carcinogenic effects of that product when it's combusted.
Thank you.
Councilmember Washington.
Yeah, my question is along the same lines as the one that Councilmember Abadanos asked about the secondhand smoke. I notice when people do the vaping, it's a whole lot more smoke that comes out than the average cigarette. And on several occasions, I've seen vehicles ride by me and the entire car is full of it. And I guess my question to you is, does it fall under the same requirements as tobacco's smoke from a law standpoint, where if you have a child in the car, you can't do that? Or does that have to be a separate type of ordinance that goes out to vote? Because it's horrible what I see when they blow the smoke out. It's so much more than an average cigarette.
So in 2016, the state of California amended the definition of tobacco product and smoking to be inclusive of electronic smoking devices and the emerging products. And under that state definition, anywhere that smoking is prohibited, so is vaping. However, locally, it's also important because smoke-free laws are different across localities. So it's also important locally for your definition to match the state to include those newer and more prevalent products.
Okay, and then the second question would be, do you guys, I know we have students here that you guys' presentation was awesome. Do you present in school too to the students to let them see what's going on, to kind of encourage them not to go that way?
I think earlier this year, earlier this year at New Tech, we held a parent panel for the county where we kind of informed the parents about like the different ways to handle talking about it with your kid and starting those conversations of tobacco use in the first place. I know in the past we've also done some presentations about that in our own school, but I would say the parent panel is probably the thing that we did this year.
Thank you. And lastly, I just want to say, keep doing what you're doing because it's educating everybody and it's impactful. So don't give up. You know, somebody's listening.
Councilmember Almadanos, you had a little technical problem there. Tell them if you were finished with your comments.
It looks like it's still happening for some reason. My laptop is plugged in, but it won't charge. I was just going to ask if it's true that vape secondhand smoke is not as bad for you as regular secondhand smoke. And then one of the youth members, speakers mentioned that anxiety might be related to secondhand smoke or smoking. Dr. Lucio, I don't know if you can elaborate on that. I never knew that you can get anxiety from being exposed to secondhand smoke.
Yeah, just in terms of anxiety, it could be because, when you have asthma and you're suffering and you're having a hard time breathing, that can actually provoke anxiety too. So I think it could be a secondary effect of having the physical problem that's really contributing to some of the stress that's being suffered. And I think that Councilmember Washington also asked the same question that you did about what is contained in vape, in vape smoke. Or vape, and it's the same amount of nicotine as well as other products of combustion that are the heavy metals and other toxins that could be implicated in causing cancer.
And last question, then I'll leave you guys alone. Did you guys do a presentation for the county? Because I believe Supervisor Brad Wagenknecht was involved in some kind of tobacco reforms work.
We did work with the county to change their definition of smoking and tobacco product back in, I want to say it may have been like 2015, right when electronic smoking devices were becoming more and more popular. And we have worked with Brad on many occasions.
The question within the the youth segment, a lot of it is exposure that comes with peer pressure. And I was just wondering what the buzz is on the campus is around with respect to vaping and smoking in terms of, because the peer pressure oftentimes is the first step toward somebody initially engaging in that activity. And what's the peer pressure to prohibit or avoid being in contact? Can anybody remark on that? What are we doing about peer pressure?
Quite honestly, I graduated from high school in 2019. I went to New Tech personally because I was so involved in our club that we had at the school regarding this large topic. Personally, I was already adamant about no. I'm not entirely, from my observation, I just remember so many kids involved in it, and it didn't matter what clique you were in or whatever, or a stereotype. There's nothing that prohibits youth from using it based on who they are. It really can be anyone. So in terms of peer pressure, I don't know too much about that, but it definitely affects every youth just because it's so prevalent in high schools at the moment. And
I just think at some point it's, this is a cool thing to do. We're the cool crowd. So how do you get the message out there? This is not cool. This is bad to do. The cool thing is to not do it. How do you get that message out?
Oh, excuse me. Also adding on to the peer pressure thing, I'm very active in my school and more of I'm in theater, I'm in sports, I'm in leadership, and I meet all different types of people, and I know many people who smoke. And I remember, because I'm a very big no, I've had family members who smoked, I've seen negative effects of it, and this is why I'm very strong on trying to ban it or just doing the best we can to have especially youth just avoid it in general. But it's more of, with the peer pressure, people don't, at least from my experience, people don't think it's cool. People think it's more of a way to just have fun. They're like, oh, we can get loose, or oh, look, we're getting high, or whatever it is. And they're like, it's just more fun. It adds more to whatever they're doing. And I feel like if we just show that it's just so bad for you, and that in the end, that fun isn't going to be worth it because you're risking your health for it, I don't think it would be so open to youth as much, or they wouldn't want to be doing it more.
Thank you. Please spread that message out there. Please do it. I think that's youth mostly, it's that same life with things. All the issues are very experimental or new. This is now the cool thing this week. It's not cool next week. But I think, youth to youth, you probably, I think, would have the greatest impact on it because you set the standards for what's the norm. What's the interaction? What's cool? And I think if the message is, not vaping, no tobacco is the cool thing to do, that certainly was going to get around a lot too. So got to approach it from a lot of different angles, but I'm just always concerned with how the youth pick up that information. I really want to thank you for your presentation, Steve. This is very, very informative. Oh, I see Vice Mayor Joseph has his hand up.
Yes, thank you. I would also like to thank you all for your presentation. I noticed one of the objectives, it seems like, is for us to consider a ban on smoking or vaping in multifamily units. And I'm wondering if there's been any outreach to the apartment owners or managers, because it would seem to me that they might be sympathetic because there's that third-hand smoke that from a homeowner's perspective, third-hand smoke just represents, tearing your apartment up and having to repaint it more frequently and so on. So they may be more economically incentivized to go along with a ban like that than you might expect. So it may behoove you to do a little bit of outreach, similar to your experience in Napa, where the idea is working with the business community, you might find, putting together a better package. So it's just something to suggest in your efforts to move this issue forward. But like I said, a great presentation and I appreciate it.
Thank you. We'll take it in consideration. And actually, before we presented, they took the work to call all those apartment complexes and ask if smoking was allowed. And we were shocked, actually, to see those new apartment buildings that they will allow people to smoke in. Yes. So we just did an investigation to see if they were allowed, because like, for example, here in the city of Napa, all the new buildings are not allowing people to smoke, but there in American Canyon, most of them are allowing people to smoke in their own apartments.
Well, council, something we should consider.
That is something, isn't it? Okay, well, thank you, especially for having done the research.
Well, thank you all for your presentation this evening. Very informative. And I think we have all learned something from it as well. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good job. Moving on in our agenda, public comment this evening. Anything public comment on items not on the agenda?
Where we received written comments on non-agenda items. One from Beth Markets, thanking Chief Ortiz for his service as police chief. A non-agenda item regarding the Memorial Day celebration, Julie Foster, Kim McDonald, Lucilla DeTillis, Cindy Biederman. Another non-agenda item regarding parking at Toscano from Carolyn Reed. And the last non-agenda item regarding veterans and cannabis from Jason Kishner.
Thank you. Moving on, any agenda changes, council? There's nothing from the Fire Protection District Board to see if American Canyon has consent calendar. If no objections, I'll entertain a motion to approve.
Mr. Mayor, I think there's some public comments, hands raised for public comments.
Oh, we have? All right.
Yes, we have Karina Cervinte first.
Very good.
Hi, Karina.
Hi, thank you.
Oh.
David, thank you. I mean, Councilman Oro, thank you for looking out for our, I appreciate it.
Thank you for catching that.
Yeah. So good evening, council, staff, and mayor, and everyone there. I want to first thank the city and the staff for putting a really good pride flag ceremony this morning. Thank you for doing that. Thank you for being inclusive. Also, I would like to thank Cindy Biederman, the Vallejo Veterans Supporting War Post 1123, Pierre Washington, American Canyon Boy Scouts, American Canyon Lions Club, and many, many more that saw a need / void for recognizing and honoring our fallen military servicemen and women. It was a sight to behold when I got to Memorial Veterans Park, I'm sorry, during the memorial time to reflect ceremony that Cindy Biederman put very last minute, but boy, did she did an amazing job. So huge thanks to her and to everyone that helped out there. But also this brings the need of bringing back the Citizens Committee we used to have. In fact, my first time volunteering for the city was answering an ad in, I don't even remember if it was Nextdoor or Facebook where it was, but Rich Peterson posted that needed folks to come and help out with the 4th of July committee. And I went to that first meeting and that was it. Later on in 2016, I got the Gateway Award. So that should tell you how important these committees are. We should bring them back. We should have, folk out there that wants They want to, the betterment of the city. They want to be champions for our city. The reasoning for getting rid of the committee was that the city wanted to take over and make sure that things ran well and run when they needed to be run. But we kind of hit a hiccup.
Oh, you,
At least I'm not the only one with computer issues today.
yeah. Do we lose contact?
You got 30 seconds left.
Okay, well, I think at this point we don't have a connection with her. So sorry.
I'll leave her and I'll move her and
We have
Mayor,
another
request-
speaker?
bring her back. Mhm. Chris James is next.
Okay.
Hi, Chris.
There you go. Double tap. Thank you so much. I wanted to second the thanks for the Pride flag raising this morning, and it was a very touching ceremony this morning, especially the singing. I must admit I'm not a singer, but I did join in. So I thank you for that. I also wanted to thank Cindy for her awesome work pulling together at the last minute the meeting, the Memorial Day celebration yesterday. That was really awesome too. I also wanted to touch on the Zoom calls. I've appreciated that we've kind of stuck with them. I actually really like them. A lot of people have told me that they like them. I think that we may be going away from them potentially soon, and I would encourage the city to keep them going. I have several elderly neighbors that like to participate. I have a mother-daughter that likes to do it together, where they go to prepare dinner. So it's engaging the youth that may not go to such meetings, but they can have it on the background while they do other things. It's also really good to catch up and step in and out of these meetings because they can drag on. I know you all appreciate being at home and being able to participate in these things. So I'm hoping that we can continue to go forward, and also people that have mobility restricted issues. So I'm encouraging accessibility for all. I guess it's I think it's a really good thing that if we can keep it going, if we can. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Cindy Biederman.
Good evening.
Hello, good evening.
First, I wanted to say that because of Zoom school is still in, I was unable to get to the start of the Pride flag raising ceremony, but I did catch Nance and Sandy singing, and they are amazing. And it sure was nice to have that. It was great. On the second one, of course, we all know I got a lot of things I could say, but you can't talk back because it's on a public comment. We have some, I think this probably highlighted some issues with our city council, parks, and our city manager. So I'm going to request that you guys go back, pull the resolution where you guys took over the events, 4th of July, Veterans Day, and Memorial Day. Dust it off, look at it, because that was a promise you guys made when you took over the events to hold them. Can't blame COVID on this one. I won't buy that because you don't send us over to a red tier community to go enjoy their celebration if you're worried about us getting COVID. I want to look at that resolution. It's time to talk. It's time to bring the community back. It's time to bring the community organizations back. What was so amazing about that ceremony was the community. It was the heart that they put in it. It was the fact that they were able to say something, to do something, and to give something that they've been having, been restricted for how many years? So I would like to have that agenda. I do not want it agendized on the first week of July because I won't be here. But I would like to have the people who comment here notified. And I think it's time to have that discussion. You know, I could say what I want to say. It's going to make me feel better when I get off here, but it's not going to resolve anything. So thank you.
Another speaker?
Next person is Justin Hamilton O.
Okay.
Hi, Justin.
Yeah, everybody hear me?
Yes, hi, we can hear you. Go ahead.
Yeah. I want to just shout out the American Middle School. I went on a special Zoom meeting with them, and I saw two gal that one gonna try to talk to you guys, see if I can come in, do a give to me because I'm helping American pick up garbage, keep the school safe. And I wanted to just thank the teachers, the staff, let me come in. So thank you for doing that to me. The second one is good news is that the hill over by my house it now is a sale. So I just need wait for get new house down here. So new sidewalk. So thank you.
Thank you. Is that another speaker?
No more public comments.
Okay, great. Now we can move on to our agenda. The agenda changes, council? No, I'll accept the motion to approve this consent calendar.
So moved.
I'll second.
Motion second, roll call, please.
Councilmember Abadamos,
Yes.
Councilmember Oro,
Yes.
Councilmember Washington,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Joseph,
Yes.
Mayor Garcia.
Yes. Thank you, council. There are no public hearings this evening. We'll move on to our business items. Item D1, adopt a resolution declaring a stage-wide drought emergency and call for a voluntary 10% reduction in water usage by all city customers.
Thank you, Mayor and Council, and as Felix and staff come up on the screen here, trying to introduce this item. We met back in May and presented the current statewide status and the local status as it relates to water supply and drought. And it's time to take some additional actions. We really do need the support from the community in scaling back our demand this year. This is an issue facing everyone in California, and American Canyon is no different. We do have some great new tools that are available. We'll talk a little bit about that in the presentation tonight, but so far, not too many of our residents have signed up for the customer portal. This is a portal where residents can see in real time their water usage and really be part of the solution. If you wait until your utility bill shows up 45 to 60 days later, it's really hard to be a part of a solution. You don't remember that far back as to what days of the week you were doing certain activities. But if you can go onto a website and look at the water going to your house in the last hour, then you can really start to be part of the solution. So I'll turn it over to Felix and the rest of the staff as they explain more of the situation. But our request tonight, at least foremost, is for our residents to start signing up to that website portal, which is available on our website. And take it away, Felix. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Hawley, and good evening, Mayor, Council, members of the public staff. Felix Hernandez, Maintenance Utilities Director. I got to tell you first, this new format, jumping in and out like that, is I'm still not quite used to that. the new panelist format either way. With that being said, a little over a month ago in April 21st, Mayor Gavin Newsom declared a drought emergency to exist in Mendocino, Sonoma counties due to severe drought in the Russian River watershed. Subsequent to that, in May, we did give council an update on the city's water usage from 2018 through 2020, showing the historical water usage. As part of that, we outlined that the customer demand in 2020 was roughly 2,800 acre feet that year, and that the city is facing, if assuming no reduction in demand, that the city is facing a deficit of approximately 1,000 acre feet this year. That same time, council was informed of other water sources available. Those include allocations from the Emergency Vallejo Permit Water, Yuba Accord Water, and Dry Year Transfer Program Water. The amount of additional supplies identified to be available are a little over 1,000 acre feet. And it does meet the anticipated shortfall for this year. However, part of this of the strategy for 2021 is reducing customer demand. That's part of our strategy. So not long after that May 4th meeting, the governor also declared a emergency in Klamath River, Sacramento, San Joaquin Delta, and the Tulare Lake watershed. So American Canyon's water supply is sourced from the Sacramento San Joaquin Delta watershed. As we move into the conservation discussion, previously, and that would be some 5 years ago, 2015, council did adopt the Urban Water Management Plan and a companion ordinance that's known as the Water Conservation Plan. The Urban Water Management Plan identifies the water demands available, available supplies. It has some projections for demands. And that document is specifically prepared to be used during drought conditions such as the one that we're currently facing. By implementing a stage 1 drought emergency, council could reduce consumption of water by approximately 10% or roughly 280 acre feet based on the 2020 total consumption. This would reduce the anticipated amount consumed in 2021 to roughly 2,600 acre feet, which will reduce the amount of water needed to be purchased from other sources. So in the event of drought like we have now, the Urban Water Management Plan establishes 4 stages of conservation. During a stage 1 drought emergency, all customers, residential, commercial, industrial, and governmental are requested by the city to reduce their water usage by 10%. Subsequent stages mandate increased conservation, including stage 2, 20% reduction, mandatory. Stage 3, 30% reduction, mandatory. And stage 4, reduction, 50% mandatory. Currently at the stage 1 phase, the 10% reduction can be achieved by our customers by just a few things which we'll outline later on in the presentation, but I will go through and touch on them here as well. So some practices that can be done by commercial, residential, government agencies: reduce the number of days per week for irrigating landscape, especially turf lawns. Do so during the late evening, early morning hours, between 6 p.m. 6 a.m. Inspect all irrigation systems, repair leaks, adjust spray heads, provide optimum coverage, eliminate overspray. So for instance, if a customer were to see their sprinklers, maybe they come out in the morning and see their sidewalks are wet, which I can tell you even in Healdsburg are the same type of scenarios happening here. And we see the same thing. Some of the neighbors have their irrigation spraying onto the sidewalk. They want to eliminate those type of things. Reduce minutes of runtime for each irrigation cycle. If water begins to run off to gutters or shutting off the irrigation system altogether, completely shut it off. Utilize water conservation incentives, rebate programs, which we'll touch on later with our presentation. Replace plumbing fixtures, appliances with water efficient models. Limit the duration of showers to 5 minutes or less. Turn off the faucet when brushing teeth and flushing toilets only when necessary each day. All users would be subject to the same request for 10% reduction in use In addition, the city would suspend the raw water supply it makes available to a few vineyard customers. Staff are continuing to identify city facilities where consumption may be reduced. Primary locations, Kimberly Park, which we have moved Kimberly to recycled water. We figure that's going to save about 15,000 gallons per week, a little over 2 acre-feet per year. Another thing staff are looking at, we're moving forward with, is water-free urinals, various city facilities, which conserves up to 40,000 gallons per unit. And I believe that with what we've identified, it amounts to a little over 1 acre-foot per year. Lastly, as described on May 4th, staff, we have formed an informal drought strike team, which we have members of that team joining us tonight, and we'll go through this presentation with you. Those meetings have been productive. We continue to update and brainstorm and come up with some things. Again, we'll touch on more shortly. This does, for council priority programs and projects, falls under managing city water supply portfolio, ensures the city has resources to support sustainable growth, ensure the city has a stable long-term water supply. With that, staff recommends City Council adopt a resolution declaring a stage 1 drought emergency and calling for a voluntary 10% reduction in water use by all city customers. We can have some questions now. If you'd like, we can have this presentation and then we can answer questions after. I think the presentation will perhaps answer some of the questions. Mr. Mayor, I will refer to you on that if you'd like to.
Continue with the presentation?
Yes.
Very well.
Okay, would you continue with the presentation, please?
Yeah, thank you, sir. Okay, drought strike team reports is June 1st, 2021, of course. The strike team, so we have utility billing, park maintenance, water reclamation, water treatment and distribution, recycled water, communication, outreach, development, and engineering. Tonight, we have water reclamation with us, water treatment and distribution, and recycled water staff from those divisions. Oh, and communications and outreach. So during current status stage 1 drought emergency upon City Council approval tonight, what we intend to do, we're asking for a 10% reduction in water usage. This is kind of our rough draft visual, but we'll have something like this, this water drop on the city's website. And when that is full, it will equal 10%, is what we're saying. It's full, it's 10%. So as we monitor through our AMI system, our metering system, and we look at our production rates and our usage, we'll be able to say, okay, we've reached a 1% or a 2% or 3%, so on and so forth, in our reduction in consumption, which this drop will reflect. It's similar to what you might see when people are having fundraisers and they have it going up and they reach their goal of $10,000 or $20,000, whatever it may be. For this particular thing, it's our 10% reduction. And that's kind of a visual thing we're working on that we will have on the website when we get out there. So our residents, really anybody that went to our website would know, here's where we're at. Here's what we've been able to reduce with a goal of 10%. Next slide, please. Thank you. Again, stage 1 goal reduced by 10%. I've touched on these. Again, reduce the number of days per week you're going to irrigate your landscape, inspect your system, reduce the minutes of your runtime for irrigation cycles, utilize water conservation incentives, which again we'll touch on later on in the presentation, limit the duration of showers to 5 minutes or less. I would like to say this as well, is we have, for customers, any residents that's sitting in tonight and watching this presentation, or even if they go to our website, if there's, and more importantly, if they sign up for the customer portal, they'll be able to track their usage. And if they see something like have really high usage, or if they see something that's not quite right in the irrigation system, they can always contact the city. We have staff that will go out. They can also look at the meter reads, help determine what's going on, and then go out and respond and take a look at the system as well. So we're always available to help. Next slide, please. Recycled water. I'm going to turn this over to Dominic Patrick, Water Systems Manager.
Felix,
Oh,
I'm sorry
go
to interrupt. Dominic is having some technical difficulties. The goblins of the night have gotten his computer. So if you want to take the first half of the slide, I'll take or then Pam will take the second half.
Excellent. Very well. Wow. There are some gremlins tonight. So Kimberly Park conversion, which I touched on earlier, reclaimed irrigation has been added to all Kimberly Parks, saving roughly 15,000 gallons per week. To put that in perspective, a little bigger picture, it's probably a little under 800,000 gallons a year, roughly 2.3 acre feet a year. So 1 acre foot of water is about 326,000 gallons. And Pam Phillips.
Good evening, Mayor and Council members. So I run the Recycle Water program here at the Water Reclamation Facility. We do currently have a residential recycle program where residents can go to the courtyard and fill up approved water containers with recycled water and take them back to their houses and use them, outside in their landscaping and gardens. To date, we do have 73 residential users, meaning that they have all been trained on how to use recycled water and what to use it for and what not to use it for. We're also currently setting up a second station here at the Water Reclamation Facility, so that way people have the option to either go to the courtyard or come here to our facility and get reclaimed water as well.
Internal operations changes and outgoing communications, water-free urinals at city facilities. We have also for service leaks that we've identified in 2021. We've identified 38 of the 38, 18 have been repaired.
Hey, I'll jump in here. Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm Jen Kansenbach, the city's communications manager. So since we last updated you, we've have a few communications go out or that are going to be going out shortly. One is a water bill insert that went in. It's actually in the bills that are in the mail right now. So some people probably just need to go check their mail and they'll get that insert. So that is the first insert encouraging people to sign up for the My Water portal that we've been talking about tonight. We're going to be starting a social media campaign probably by next week. We're also going to have another bill insert coming up in the next bill and probably every bill for the rest of the year. And then we have a drought outreach card that I spoke about last time that we're going to be printing this week, and I'll be putting those in your boxes at City Hall. We'll also be giving those to staff that are in the field so that they can give those out. I'm going to take the slide for Dominic because he's missing. So the water portal, as City Manager Holly mentioned earlier, we haven't had as much, actually maybe that was Felix, I'm not sure. But anyway, we haven't had as much participation yet. But as I mentioned, the water bills are hitting the mail right now, which is the first push on that. So as you're aware from our last update, the water portal is a free service available on our website that our customers can sign up to monitor their water usage. It breaks down to hourly, so you can see if you have any leaks, which is a really great tool. And you can also set up text alerts to keep you notified if you use too much water. Our website is the base of all of our communications, and that's no exception for the drought updates. So we have our main page is cityofamericancanyon.org/water. And you can see on this page a big button here where users can sign up for the water portal. We also have other buttons throughout the page to guide people to the state's campaign on Save Our Water in English and Spanish. And then the water drop with our current situation that Felix mentioned earlier will be located in the current conditions section of the page. On the bottom part of the page, we have our Save Water and Money rebate programs, the Cash for Grass and Toilet rebate. And then we also have some other resources and information to help people become more informed on what's going on.
Jen, I'm going to jump in for a second, if you don't mind, in the last slide. And it's more related to our goal. When we have, what we're able to do is we can also, not only can we do the city as a whole where we have a 10% reduction and we can show that reduction as a whole. We also have the ability to break that information down. So we can break it down with our residential customers, our commercial customers, and then we have some other connection sources, say raw water connection points as well. So we can break those things down, and we can provide our commercial folks with just to let them know, hey, here's how you're doing, right, commercially and residential, and so on and so forth. So we have the ability to do that. We do intend to do that, to provide that information, and then also as a whole, we will show how the city's doing as a whole. Thank you, Jen.
Perfect. So I'm going to turn this over to Uri, and he'll talk about the rebate programs and their status.
Thanks, Jen. Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Uri Juricevich, and I'm the environmental specialist with the City of American Canyon, and I manage both the Cash for Grass and toilet rebate programs. And I just wanted to go into a little bit more detail about those programs. So I'll start out with the Cash for Grass program. So it's basically incentivizing residents to replace their thirsty lawns with a more sustainable landscape that's more sustainable to our natural climate. And what we do basically is we offer $1 per square foot up to 750 square feet or $750 per resident per household. And yeah, it's a great program. And I've done a lot of inspections out there, and it's really cool to see some of the before and afters and the transitions on how great the creativity you see from some of these residents. It's amazing. And so far we've had 28 applications in 2021 for the Cash for Grass, which is a pretty good number, and hope we're going to get a lot more in the next few months. And then for toilet rebate, that's our other water conservation rebate program. And that one basically just incentivizes homeowners to replace if they have an old toilet that uses a lot of water, it incentivizes them to replace that with a more water efficient toilet that's WaterSense certified, up to 1.28 gallons per flush. And then obviously that's, to conserve water as well. So we just kind of want to incentivize the residents to do that. And residents can have multiple toilets for one household. They can receive rebates for. So if they have, let's say, 4 toilets at their household, they can receive $400 because they receive $100 per toilet. So far we've received 11 toilets. 11 toilets have been replaced so far in 2021. And yeah, those are the 2 programs in a nutshell. And thank you for your time.
Okay, so we're to that point. Questions, feedback, and suggestions.
Okay, thank you for the presentation. It's been very informative. I look forward to more to come on this. Some of the program for monitoring your water usage. This first Friday is the North Bay Watershed Association meeting. Certainly over in you're probably aware from staff, Sonoma County, the Russian River water system is in pretty dire straits, far worse than where we are. And I hear conversations about going from stage 2 to stage 3 and monitoring the reservoirs. But I don't know if they have a tool like we just implemented here so that individually each person can monitor their household use. And I think that would be very helpful for everybody. I certainly will be participating in this one. Thank you. Is that Councilmember Joseph?
Yes, thank you for the presentation and all the good information and programs. I like the idea of the water drop as kind of a big picture presentation of how we're getting towards our 10%. But I'm wondering if there's a way that we could get a little more detailed information. By that, I just mean similar to what we get on our water bills, but for the entire system. So breaking out maybe what's the total residential use, commercial use, public, unaccounted for, that type of thing, and show it so that we can compare each month. Did we meet our 10% in the last month versus a year ago, that kind of thing. If there's some kind of a written report that could be thrown on a consent calendar each month, that would be handy. It would also give us kind of a quick reminder of where we're at and where we need to improve, and maybe who's doing a greater job. something like that.
That's a good thought, Vice Mayor, because I think maybe, particularly for me, I think right off the top, separating industrial, commercial consumption versus residential.
Yeah, thank you, Vice Mayor Joseph. The answer to that question is yes. Yes, we may have missed that part of the presentation where we absolutely can do that. We can break that down, and so we can have those particular things. And further to that is we're also working with a consultant to provide even more analytics and more visual reporting. I believe Dominic had mentioned to me today that we anticipate having something in July, August. We'll have some more data that we've be able to put together and some graphs and whatnot. But absolutely breaking down the residential, commercial, industrial users without a doubt.
Okay, good. And the other part, I think we really do need to encourage people signing up for the portal, in which I need to do that myself so that I can see how I'm using water every day. But and yeah, so I think these are some incredible tools, and it'll be interesting to see how we react to this drought. I don't know if you would have this information, but our long-term hope is the Sites Reservoir. And I'm wondering if there's been any indication as to whether these drought conditions are impacting the viability of the reservoir. I remember when we first talked about it, the whole appeal was this generated a water supply regardless of rain and drought and so forth. Do we know if that's still holding up, or the analysis is still holding up?
Yeah, yes, thank you, Vice Mayor Joseph. It is, and the Sites Reservoir Authority, they have put out some informational flyers in that respect, essentially saying if we had the Sites Reservoir, we would be able to avoid some of these drought conditions that we're seeing, and at least we will be able to react to them, right, to have a viable water source. Something else I wanted to touch on. I do live in Sonoma County. I live in Healdsburg. Healdsburg they've asked us to have a 20% reduction. And I can tell you that the city of Healdsburg has not had the kind of outreach that the city of American Canyon has. I can't log into my account with the city of Healdsburg and look at my water usage and see where I'm at. So that to touch on that, when I'm asked, well, I wonder what other people have. I can tell you the city of Healdsburg does not have that ability. Another thing I wanted to touch on was we are part of the recycled water program that we're doing. We got some feedback from some residents. I didn't see the slide in here, Jen. Maybe I missed it, but we did do some outreach. We had where we have the Saturday event. Oh, here we go. Yeah, the recycled water program. So we did have this event. We had 18 residents participated. We gave 33 barrels provided. So what the city did was we got work with some of our partners in the community, got some donations for some barrels. We also purchased some barrels. We had residents come in. We went through the training, which Pam was a huge part of this, setting this up. And from this event that we had some feedback about why not have a Saturday fill station open on Saturdays. So what we're trying to do now is we're going to have another event when we kick off the fill station at the water reclamation facility. Once we open that, we'll have another event promoting it. So we'll have 2 locations, and then we will also, that'll be on a Saturday, and then we will also start doing Saturday. We'll have a Saturday station that'll be open. So folks that can't get off work Monday through Friday in that time frame, they can come in on a Saturday and they can get some recycled water for their plants and lawn.
That sounds exciting. The recycled water sounds exciting, but 50 gallons of water is pretty heavy. So are there techniques of putting it on your truck or vehicle and getting it off, or is it you put it on there and you use it from there and that's it? I mean, how are the logistics of doing this if you don't have a good truck?
Thank you for that, Vice Mayor Joseph. I can only speak to what I've seen. I have not seen folks, maybe Pam could touch on what we've seen in American Canyon, but what I've seen in Healdsburg is there was a fill station in Healdsburg. People have a truck. They don't typically, someone will have a truck and they'll fill their tote up and they will irrigate out of that. They'll have it parked in front of their house. But Pam, maybe you could speak to that if you have experience with it in American Canyon.
Yeah, so I actually bought barrel siphons as well to give out to people. So it's just a siphon you put in the barrel. As soon as you pump it, the water will start coming out. I was actually coming home with my son the other day, and there was a person with 2 barrels on the back of their truck pumping out their water, and I got very excited. My son called me a water nerd. But it was like, I'm like, oh, those are my barrels that I gave out. So, I think the more that people have available to them, and the more that they'll use them, we're really trying to make it an easy program for people to use. So that's why we are keeping the barrels on site for people to have, and then making it very easy to where they just have to come into the facility. They'll know how to operate the stations, and then they can just do it themselves. They really don't need a staff person out there with them.
Excellent.
Vice Mayor Joseph, I'm also in communication with the Boy Scouts. They're looking at doing some community activities. They're a fundraiser of some sorts, or along those lines, or even just community service. And we're throwing out some ideas about the recycled water program. The strike team has also been brainstorming about how we can make things more accessible to people. And the sky's the limit as far as what we can do. And it's just a matter of brainstorming and getting things together and getting feedback from the public.
Also, I don't know if it's the same case. Years ago, I think Mazetta used to have their 50-gallon barrels. I mean, they would be filled with vinegar and all of that. But I don't know if they're still doing it. But it used to be a situation where they had to figure out ways of getting rid of them. So that may be, if you reach out to them, there may be a connection, or it may not be practical, but that may be an option. I don't know if you've looked into it already.
Pam, would you like to speak to that?
Yeah, sure. So I have actually reached out to both Mazetta and Recology. Recology was able to get me some food grade barrels for our event. Mazetta is the same way. They're just asking how many we need, and just trying to hook up with Mazetta is a little bit harder. But they're totally on board with helping us out and giving us some barrels.
Probably don't have the same connections with Recology.
It's a little bit easier.
So, yeah.
Actually, just to chime in on that, a few years back, I did connect with Mazzetta's that got a number of their barrels. Mine's is a rainwater collection system. So I came by a free used submersible pump, which transfers water very well in about 10 minutes. You can get, or less, you can get 50 gallons. 50-gallon drum's about 400 pounds. Water's 8 pounds to a gallon. So
we also have 30-gallon barrels as well.
Those are good.
But actually, like what you see in the photo here is a couple had 2 30-gallons in their minivan. So that's why we're trying to have different opportunities to match what people can handle.
Excellent. Thanks.
Good program. Other questions? Any public comment on this? You're muted, sorry.
Yes, we have 2 hands raised, Vanessa
Okay.
Laura and Chris James. Hi, Vanessa. Hi, Vanessa, please unmute your microphone. While we're waiting on Vanessa, I'll bring in Chris James.
Okay.
Hi, Chris.
Hi, everyone. I'm assuming you can hear me. Thank you. So I wanted to thank the staff for the new water program. We did sign up and participate. We got 2 free barrels. There were some white barrels. I think they were the larger. They're larger than the blue barrels. So and they're still there. We picked up some water today, so you can actually grab those white barrels, I think, for free that are there. A couple of things. on the news a couple of weeks back or a week ago, Brentwood, there was a TV spot on KCBS. If you Google Brentwood Recycle Water KCBS, you'll find a little video. And they have a little access station for water outside of a courtyard where you just use a little swipe card to turn on the machine and to enable it. And so I would allow 24/7 access. I do appreciate the alternate location, but that's quite a long way from a lot of people, and you probably burn more money in gas and polluting the environment, getting that water from the water reclamation site. So I'm a little concerned that we're going to send people up there where we should try and keep people more centralized, I think, in the city. So I do appreciate that. And the pump works great. We have the little hand pump when we're doing that. And how we get it out is we keep one barrel in the car, fill up with water, then we have one outside the car, and we transfer the water out of the car or out of the van into the second barrel, and we kind of roll that to where it needs to be. With regard to the water bills, the inserts, I would like to know how many people really actually get bills these days. You know, I'm on no mail, direct payments. It'd be good if you could get an email out to those people, not in the newsletter, because people, you know, it kind of get buried in the newsletter. You know, something really catchy title about, you know, free cash for toilets or something, you know, and you know how much dire straits we're in on this thing. It is a little confusing, these two websites now. We have two different logins to do, you know, the bill versus the usage. It'd be nice if we could kind of combine those and have the same login for those two sites. I think people are going to get confused. I consider myself very tech savvy, but I was a little confused that one wasn't working, and I wasn't sure where I was with that. And then finally, on toilets, you know, my house was built early 2000s. I have no idea how many gallons it uses. You know, I don't think there's any labels or anything on it. So it'd be good to kind of do some research. All these houses have the same toilets and when they were built. I'm assuming a lot of the subdivisions. It'd be nice to know, so we could reach out to each subdivision and try to encourage people. That people may think they have a low flow toilet, but they probably don't. I probably don't. I have no idea. So some education from staff maybe can kind of be pushed out on that. But I'm excited to see all these things going on. And I appreciate everyone's effort on this. Thank you so much.
Very good, thank you. Is another speaker?
Hi, Vanessa. Vanessa, please unmute your microphone. Well, we have technical difficulties with Vanessa, so I'll move her back over as an attendee.
All right, any other speakers?
No, there are no other speakers.
Okay, well, Vanessa, we're sorry you're not able to connect you this evening. Well, if there's any other questions or comments from us, council, the action this evening is to adopt a resolution declaring a stage 1 drought. It's in the packet.
Well, if no one else has any other comments, I'll make a motion that we adopt resolution number 2021 next in order, a resolution of the City Council of the City of American Canyon declaring a water conservation stage 1 water shortage and calling for 10% voluntary reduction of water use by all residential and commercial customers.
I'll second.
Second, roll call, please.
Councilmember Alvarado?
Yes.
Councilmember Oro?
Yes.
Councilmember Washington?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Joseph?
Yes.
Mayor Garcia?
Yes, thank you, council. Very good presentation. It's going to really help a lot in terms of water conservation this year.
Thank you, council and staff. Thank you.
All right, moving on to our agenda, we have item D2, adopt a resolution to approve the proposed budget for fiscal year 2021-22 and authorize city manager to increase appropriation for fiscal year 21-22 expenditures in the amount not to exceed the amount encumbered for expenses that did not occur prior to the end of fiscal year 2020-2021. but are expected to be expended for fiscal year 2021-22, consistent with the original purpose.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Staff comes on board here to give the presentation. I just want to say it's my pleasure to present to you the fiscal 21-22 city budget. Our Finance Director Lincoln Bogard will walk you through it. We've been to council now and the Finance Committee a couple of times and have walked through various aspects of the budget. And tonight is the final meeting that we'll be talking about next year's budget. So thanks again to staff. We have a new team in the finance department and a lot of new faces citywide. And the finance team has come together now and prepared this document for you, and really proud of the way it's going to be shaped and how it's going to look and feel for the public, and proud of the information they compiled in order to make it both a good document from a budget perspective, but also an easy to read and easy to use document as well. So thanks again for that, and take it away, Lincoln.
Thank you, City Manager Hawley. Good evening, Mr. Mayor and members of the council, as well as the citizens of American Canyon. I'd like to share Jason's nice thoughts. Our team really came together, went from publishing the budget later than normal last year to one of the earliest in history, if not the earliest in city history. So I'm very proud of the staff that we have on the finance team, and I'm looking forward to sharing this presentation with you. So start with we've had 3 council meetings leading up to this meeting for the proposed adoption of the 21-22 budget. This final proposed budget is for all citywide funds, except for fiduciary, which are not budgeted funds. Some key takeaways that I have. In the preliminary budget that was brought forth this last time, we had a projected shortfall of $210,000 in the general fund. We were asked to try and identify ways to cover that shortfall. We were able to identify some funds as well as cuts that allowed us to get there when you combine both of the funds in the general fund. However, Fund 100 would still be slightly negative. We're not planning to use any dedicated reserves, being that it's basically a break-even year for the general fund. We had no layoffs of full-time positions. We have 2 vacant positions in Parks and Rec right now that will be unfilled this year. One is an administrative clerk, and the other is a Parks and Open Space coordinator. Also of note, we have no proposed new taxes in this budget. So for the governmental funds, if you look at the general fund, revenues and expenditures are just about exactly the same. We're looking at a net income of just under $4,000. The special revenue funds are being used, but a part of the special revenue funds and the capital projects funds, those 2, the net losses in there are basically the signal repayment for State Route 29 and Napa Junction. The final payment will be made in this coming fiscal year. So that brings down fund balance on that, as well as that'll bring down fund balance in the traffic impact fee fund. And the other one is the CFD project. So we will be completing our funding in the coming year, as well as construction. So some fund balance that carries over this year will be used next year as a part of that community facilities district construction financing. The debt service funds are basically break even. The enterprise funds, or the proprietary funds, are made up of enterprise and internal service funds. The enterprise funds, they show a large net loss. However, to clarify a little bit, about a little over 3 million of that number is depreciation expense. That's a non-cash expense. The enterprise funds, we aggregate all of the funds together, so it includes, you know, your capital projects funds, your operations funds, your debt service funds, all kind of aggregated in this presentation. So when you break it out by fund, depreciation would go in the capital projects funds. It doesn't have a real impact on net position. So that accounts for about 3 million of that. And then we have about $500,000 assigned for rate studies and the facilities master plans for the enterprise funds that we have scheduled this coming year, as well as the remaining $4 million approximately is capital projects that we had discussed a bit in depth at the preliminary budget meeting last time we met. The internal service funds show a net loss of 300,000. The purpose of internal service funds is to break even. They're not supposed to maintain a fund balance. We did what we could to make sure that we had adequate, if not increased, funding in them, as well as making sure that their fund balances were in line. So while overall it looks like a large net loss, the impact is definitely not as severe as that would look. So some areas of uncertainty as far as the pandemic rebound goes, the characteristics are still unknown at this time. However, we have noticed that sales tax had a large spike in March. Car sales are kind of through the roof right now. So it appears that the rebound is fairly strong in some areas. We're looking at last year, even during the pandemic, our transient occupancy tax did fairly well during the pandemic. So we're looking forward to a strong summer for that, as well as a return to more normalcy. The card room, what will the effect of the new tables be? They've already resumed operations somewhat outside. From what I hear of people driving by, it's just packed all the time. So, that could come in higher than we're expecting. What kind of demand are we expecting for city services and things like that? Also, there's a potential loss of some or all of the VLF and lieu revenues, and those have to do with vehicle licensing fees. Currently, we're assuming that we'll receive all of those fees or in lieu revenue, but it is being debated whether to get rid of that for local governments. Our state Senator Dodd and Assembly Member Aguiar Curry are arguing in favor of local governments, and we're hoping that will gain traction and that others will join in the argument with us to continue that revenue. It is about $1.8 million per year right now. The general fund outlook, when I initially came in March, the outlook I saw was about break even if we could keep our discretionary expenditures at about 2% growth or less. When we brought the preliminary budget in May, there was an expected shortfall of 210,000, mainly due to 40% increase in insurance costs, bringing back some of the parks and rec services and contractual expenses that are going up as contracts increase in their year-over-year amounts. We were asked to identify ways to cover the shortfall. Today, I'm coming back. We have a budgeted overall net income of $3,800 for the general fund. The operating fund projects a shortfall of $82,200. We had it balanced prior to the cost of living adjustment numbers that were released on May 14th, 2021. If you'll recall, I had estimated that at 2% because the February numbers were 1.6. Well, the April numbers came in at 3.8, so that caused us to have an expenditure increase there. The Developer Projects Fund, which is a part of the general fund, has a net income of $86,000 projected, which gives the $3,800 overall general fund net income. So from last year, this is what it looked like. We have actuals up through 18-19. They expected a loss in 19-20 and a larger loss in 2020-2021. We ended up with a net income in 2020, and we are projecting break even for 2021. So moving forward, this is 18-19, 17-18, 18-19, 19-20. We show the net income there, and then a break even in 2021. Basically, using the forecasting that I did, I projected that we'll continue to grow. I'm sorry? Did someone say something? Okay. The 2022 and 23, I saw us as continuing the growth of the economy with the potential pullback in real estate values in about 2 years, which the real estate analysts are stating it's potentially in the next couple of years a softening of the real estate market. So that's why you show a kind of a steeper increase and then a phased down approach. So I am showing us at least breaking even for the coming 5 years in the future, but not a whole lot of wiggle room to work with on this projection. I will be bringing forth a separate presentation. We'll bring it to the Finance Subcommittee to go through our 5-year forecasting model before we bring it to Council sometime in August. So again, this is similar to what I've reported each time, showing where we're at and what the changes are. Something of note, when I had originally done the estimates for revenues, I had used HDL or our consultants' methodology for estimates of ones that they didn't calculate directly for line items. And looking back in time, I noticed that they used those same projections year over year, but it took the average of the last 3 years. And, you know, with the downturn that we had, that actually deflates the values that we'd be reporting, especially when you consider that this coming year we're expecting to be doing a little better than previous year. So what I did was calculate a 13-year average, did a standard deviation as well of growth per year, as well as a median and average change to come up with an estimate over a full business cycle of what a relatively conservative amount would be to grow those. And that actually helped us close, excuse me, a large portion of the gap from the May projected budget. Then If we look forward at the forecast, this shows the next 5 years forecast with faster growth in 23 and 24, and then slowing down in 25 and 6 as far as property tax and sales tax. I did account that transient occupancy tax would grow over the 5-year forecast because of the planned addition of 4 hotels over the next 5 years. I didn't increase it exponentially, but did have a fairly good growth in those numbers. And I figured that card rooms would do well for a few years and then slow down as the tables were kind of at their max capacity. So that's where those budgeted revenue forecasts come from, and we'll have more detail on that in the August meeting. So the expenditures, again, the salaries had the impact of the change in the cost of living adjustment from 2.0 to 3.8%. That did make about an $80,000 change in salaries for the general fund. We also had to adjust our retirement number because of those salaries. And then the internal service funds numbers were also changed based on the numbers that we updated, and some were increases and some were decreases. I can't tell you right offhand if that's up or down from the last time we met. I apologize. But it is still a 9.65% growth. I think last time we met, it was closer to 9.0. So looking at the forecast, I basically held salaries at a growth forecast that is fairly stable across past years when we haven't had a furlough period. And similarly with benefits, retirement. Supplies and services, I estimated that they would slow down in future years as we got to a potential softening of the real estate market. And similarly with the funding of the internal service funds. Our debt service, we really only have the City Hall building at this point, so that is just projected out for future years. As I said before, this is a really low debt footprint that the city has, and it is something that we could use for governmental type capital improvement projects to obtain some sort of guidance line of credit or something in the coming year where we could secure rates that are beneficial in the low environment that we have right now, especially since there is a push on the long-term rates upward at this time. The sheriff contract, I assumed it would grow at 3% per year since that's historically about what it grows. And those are the majority of them. So our reserve, we have a general fund contingency reserve. The goal is 25% of the prior year budget. So right now that goal would be 5.2 million. At the end of 2021-22, we would estimate 5.0 million or 24%. So we are getting close to that goal. The policy is to fund it by a minimum of 3% of salaries each year. Capital projects, as we discussed in the preliminary budget meeting, we plan to fully fund it this year. It has a minimum 100,000 each year until fully budgeted, but this year we're looking at funding it by like 400,000. Economic development, the 1 million, that has been fully budgeted for several years. And then we used to have a separate assigned fund balance for the general plan update fee. There was no goal specified, but it was funded through basically an impact fee. I spoke with the auditors and we agreed that it would be better classified as a special revenue fund. And we have actually moved it there this fiscal year already, so it's already moved. And that was about $182,691 estimated at the end of next year. So that fund balance moved from the general fund to a special revenue fund this year. This is that similar chart that we showed last time. The change would be it's about $210,000 less negative than it was before. So, so it's very similar. For our balancing measures, we aren't planning any contributions to capital projects from the general fund in 21-22. But we are also doing the 5-year capital improvement plan starting next month. And we're looking to find ways to fund the capital projects needs that we have. So what we'll start with is determining what is out there, what needs to be done, what's more of a wish list, like a horizon, and start plotting out needs going forward, looking at the level of funding year over year, even if we did like a standard flat funding or a growth at a certain percentage rate that would allow us to achieve those funding targets over a more long-term horizon. That is our goal with that. We also had some general reductions. As I mentioned earlier, we're leaving the vacant Parks and Rec admin clerk and open space coordinator positions unfilled this year. We've worked with departments to limit part-time and overtime to only essential functions. Again, we've resumed limited parks and recreation services. Self-funded programs are budgeted. Support campaigns are primarily with an online presence for the coming year. And limited special events budgeted this fiscal year, partially because demand is unknown at this time. For the general fund expenditures, we have not budgeted for any furloughs in the upcoming fiscal year. As I stated earlier, the COLA, or the cost of living adjustment, came in at 3.8% based on the April 12-month Bay Area Consumer Price Index. The insurance costs increased 40% year over year. We changed the deductible last year, so that measure to reduce costs was actually utilized last year because insurance rose then as well. Our contractual services increased based on ongoing and delayed project needs. I did some further research into projects, and most of them are ongoing. Most of them are small, 20,000 or less, but it's when you have a contract that runs year to year to year, each year you might have a COLA, so to speak, on the contract, and those add up together. And together they made a more than 2% change to the contractual services. We also had some housing projects that were budgeted in the general fund that had not been previously budgeted. The building maintenance, the ISF fund, we increased to address previously budgeted needs delayed due to the pandemic. So we had really brought the building maintenance down to bare bones and hadn't necessarily addressed all the issues that have happened. While we can't necessarily build up a fund balance in the building maintenance fund without a plan, we decided to budget at a level that would allow us to address the needs that are currently existing, as well as to make sure that we're prepared to move forward. And we may look at creating a plan on each of the ISFs going forward as to whether a net position is needed and planned, and for how long and for what purpose in the next budgeting cycle. So the next few slides just give an overall beginning fund balance, estimated revenues and transfers in, your appropriations or your expenditures and transfers out, and then the estimated ending fund balance. I believe something similar was in the staff report that is already posted, so I'll kind of breeze through these. We have the special revenue funds. I already discussed the one that dropped dramatically, which was the Community Facilities District Fund. So we're expecting 5 million to come in, but 7.7 million to go out. And that is primarily because the construction will be completed, so there should be really no fund balance left over at the end of the project. For the capital projects funds, it's the traffic impact fee fund. We're expecting to pay the streetlight repayment, which is close to $2 million. That explains why that is so much more than the estimated revenues in there. The debt service funds, the Fund 410, it's paid off at the end of this year, so this will just be a cleanup in the coming year. It should not be reported after this year. This breaks out the enterprise funds a little bit more. So most of the time when we talk about, like, say, the water fund, we'd be talking about the water operations fund, the capacity fee fund, the capital improvement fund, and in wastewater's case, also the debt service fund. So each one will handle different types of revenues, expenditures, and have different impacts on accounting. And so while the budget shows the negative impact, it looks like the depreciation might actually be budgeted in the operations fund, so we'll correct that. It should have been in where the assets are held. But the overall impact is that it's dropping, but it won't be as major as what it looked like on the original slide. The internal service funds, we left all of them with at least 25,000 in net position, except for legal services, which was break even last year and is break even this year. Next steps, we will complete the adopted budget book for circulation. Our goal is to have it published on the website by the end of June and have it sent to the printer at that time, and then get the physical books out to council as soon as we receive those back from the printer. Also, we'll do budget updates with City Council and the Finance Subcommittee throughout the year. Our tentative calendar is that in August, we'll do a presentation of the citywide 5-year budget forecast, kind of go into a little more detail than what I went into earlier. In November, December, we'll have a general fund revenue review, as well as a Q1 review look back. In February, we'll be doing the general fund long-term financial forecast. And then in March of 2022, the mid-year budget adjustments and the Q2 look back. In May, we'll be doing a Q3 review, as well as the proposed budget for the following year. So as a reminder, when we look at like the timing of key city revenues, property tax makes up over 50% of our revenues. And those are primarily received in December and April. So we receive a large chunk in December and a large chunk in April. We do get monthly remittances from people as they're paid, but since those are the due dates, we get the bulk of them then. Sales tax we receive monthly, but it's 2 months and then a true up in the third month. So it always is in the quarter following the quarter that we just had. So for example, for January through March, we get the money in May and June and then a true up in July. So it's always kind of a lag of a couple of months on that. And then transient occupancy taxes, we get monthly. It's due to our consultant who handles the collections the last day of the month following the close of the previous month. So they have 30 days to receive the money from or 31, the calendar month, to receive the money from the hoteliers. And then they remit it to us by the 15th of the month after that. So there's always a lag on that one as well. And then we generally accrue results in June that are expected to come in for this fiscal year within 60 calendar days of the end of the year. All right, that's all I have. Do we have any questions or comments? Mayor Garcia, I believe you're muted.
Thank you, Councilmember, Vice Mayor Joseph. I've been through a couple of these Finance Committee meetings with this. It's looking better all the time. Thank you for finding a place where we've got a balanced budget. That is very good indeed. I know there was a lot of work went into that, so I want to thank you for the effort. Vice Mayor Joseph?
Yes, I appreciate the performance and the presentation. One quick question, I mentioned it to the city manager, the cannabis fund, even though it's under $10,000, I'm a little puzzled, and this may not be a finance director question, but I was under the impression that anybody who wanted to submit a permit would submit some kind of a deposit that we would charge against in processing it, and that theoretically there would always be at least, if not a little bit of a surplus, certainly not a $9,000 deficit. So I'm curious, can somebody explain how that came to be? Because it looks like we have 3 or 4 applicants who haven't submitted anything, but we're processing their permit requests. So I'm confused.
I can give a little background. I did reach out to Brent Cooper to ask him about that earlier today, but unfortunately I was not able to get a hold of him before the meeting. However, as far as I'm aware, we only have 1 permit that's actually in process right now, as well as my understanding is that some background work was done before any permits were issued that were not going to be charged individually to the permits, but that was kind of covered over the course of time with permits. So it's possible that that negative stems from getting that fund up and running. And if you look at the past 3 years, it's slowly moving towards positive territory. And really in the next couple of years, it should be a positive fund balance.
Okay. And then for me, I mean, other than my standing soapboxes of a capital set aside, financial forecasting, and a structurally balanced budget, which we don't need to go into now. Now I'm a little more focused on the budget document itself, and in particular, performance indicators. I know that we got a few of them starting, but there's some that can be very generic. For example, with streets, we know how many lineal feet of streets we maintain. We can then apply, the budget and the staffing levels and come up with ratios that say it costs so much money per mile to maintain a road. And then we can use that not only for operational purposes, but to compare over time if we're becoming more efficient or whatever. There's other indicators like the performance or the pavement condition index. But as it relates to almost anything that we do, there is a basic number that you can then say it costs us so much per mile, so much per accounts payable, so much per park, and so on. So if we could try to integrate that kind of very classic efficiency indicators, ratios, that might help because it'll begin to give us a sense of, are we doing better or worse or the same? So I really hope we can start working on the key performance indicators as it relates to our ongoing services. Not so much, and I know we've talked about our 2-year work plan, but we have a lot of ongoing services that could use some KPI attention. So I'd just like to emphasize that going forward.
Sure, and we do already have some of those information on the cost of a linear square foot, the cost of a sidewalk, the curb ramp, and whatnot. We actually use that in our Measure T certification process that we submit annually.
Great, thank you.
Okay. Other questions, comments from council? Council ready for public comment? Getting no objection, public comment. Do we have any speakers? Oh, you're muted, sorry.
There are no public comments
Okay,
and
very
no
good.
hands raised.
All right. We'll close public comment, return to council for desired action. This is to adopt the resolution to approve the proposed budget for fiscal year 2021-22.
Well, if there's no further comment, I will make a motion to adopt resolution number 2021 next in order. A resolution of the City Council of the City of American Canyon approving adoption of the final proposed budget for the fiscal year 2021-22.
I'll second that.
Second. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Abadamos,
Yes.
Councilmember Oro,
Yes.
Councilmember Washington,
Yes.
Mayor Joseph,
Yes.
Mayor Garcia.
Call me, I'll tell you yes. Well, and you know what to think? June 1st, we got the budget. Wow. Congratulations. That was a heavy lift. Very good work done indeed. Thank you. Okay, we'll move on to management staff oral reports.
Yes, Mayor, thank you. I know Brent has a couple of updates from last week's Planning Commission meeting. Before he provides those updates, just want to talk a little bit about the topic of reopening after COVID. Still a lot of plans that are in flux. We're awaiting a hearing by Cal OSHA on Thursday that will hopefully provide some clarity as it relates to the workplace environment. As an employer, we care very much about our employees and their safety, and we're guided by the regulations that Cal OSHA prescribes. So all of the talk in the legislature and the governor about different plans is all interesting, but we follow what OSHA tells us to do. Those are the regulations that we follow more closely. So next Thursday, we might have some more clarity. They were scheduled to have a hearing last month, and they postponed the hearing. Where we're hearing different reports about what these different measures might be. So we're looking at those options. We do think there's going to be some changes or some different interpretations or modifications potentially to the Brown Act, which governs the way that open public meetings are covered. 18 months ago, this meeting by Zoom would not have been allowed. The rules around teleconferencing were much different. Majority of the council had to be in person. And so absent the continuing exemption from the governor to that law, we cannot have meetings by Zoom that are subject to the Brown Act. We are expecting maybe the continuation of that order, or maybe some revisions in state law to modify the Brown Act. in some way. So even in communicating with Senator Dodd's staff late this afternoon, there's a lot of different ideas and topics swirling, and I don't think quite anyone knows what public meetings are going to look like this summer. We are kind of presuming we're going to have to begin, we will no longer have exemptions. And so we are presuming later this summer that the Brown Act won't be modified and that we will be having open meetings back in person. And we've targeted July 20th as to be that first meeting in the council chambers. We've got that kind of penciled more as a convenience of schedule because our next council meeting is actually June 15th. Presumably whatever changes were made, wouldn't take effect the next day. So we don't have a meeting on July 6th, and then our next council meeting will be July 20th. So we've targeted July 20, penciled really in person, the potential for that. We don't know yet whether there will be capacity limitations in the chambers, whether who will be invited, and any of the sort of structural changes that may be needed, because we don't even know what the regulations that OSHA and others may be placing on us yet. We are fortunate in having a very nice council chambers and a very wide open space. There are other jurisdictions countywide that we've heard about, and they don't have any idea how they would have an open meeting act, regular in-person meeting, given their small spaces and confined spaces. So however we end up having to rearrange things in the chambers, we'll do to comply both with whatever the Brown Act looks like and whatever the OSHA regulations are and other possibilities. We're targeting July 20th for that. Lastly, we are looking at a July 4th celebration. We are looking at an abbreviated version of what we've traditionally done on July 4th, really build around the community. We're not going to be widely broadcasting or advertising this. We do want to have our residents be able to enjoy it, but we don't want to be importing residents from other communities, so it's going to be a bit of a balance. There will be a parade in the late afternoon, followed by some musical festivities in Community Park 2, and then some fireworks. It won't be the all-day affair, and it will not have any kind of vendors or any kind of bouncy houses or those sorts of things, which at this point we cannot even plan for because of COVID still. So we are planning, like I said, an abbreviated in-person event that would involve a parade and some music and fireworks, which we think the community will really embrace and find a good sort of coming out party for the summertime. So we are going to be communicating with residents and groups and community groups to engage them on how to do the parade and the different possibilities for that. And we are excited to be able to offer this for our residents. I'm certainly happy to answer any questions if the council had any related to these announcements.
Questions from council?
I have a question. So before we had the COVID pandemic, we were actually working on upgrading our camera and microphones and trying to get more public engagement, whether it was childcare at City Hall or somehow getting public comment through Facebook or YouTube or whatever. We talked about it, and then COVID hit and we went to Zoom, which made it easy for everyone to participate virtually. I understand that we can't meet via Zoom once the Brown Act suspension is lifted or is no longer, or however you want to phrase that. But can we still allow public comment via Zoom? Or telephone?
Not sure. We're literally at this point, we don't know how those. We expect the Brown Act will be different, but how the Brown Act looks and feels, or how it's interpreted as far as creating those venues, we're not sure yet. There is the potential to do them by Zoom, but again, the upgrades that we had talked about were some equipment and some computer upgrades. We did some, but not all of those upgrades. And the backbone of our system still runs through a last century technology through Channel 28. So we have some structural issues there, and we're gonna have to work through them. The July 20 meeting probably won't be as robust as some of our Zoom meetings have been. We're gonna have to sort through some of those bumps. We have to first know whether you can actually even have a council meeting by Zoom. Can you have any of the council members on the Zoom? Can you have participants on the screen, but the council members in chambers? How would you project all of that? How would you project it on Napa 28 TV? How would you project it on YouTube and Facebook? So
I'm just trying to figure out a way where people can comment without physically being at City Hall. So, or sending an email. So either like by phone or by Zoom. I'm not suggesting the council members don't need to be in council chambers, but just a way for people to participate virtually.
No, I appreciate that. And we have felt a little bit different level of engagement. I think some of our speakers even spoke to it tonight. The ability to do it more from the comfort of your own home rather than having to come to City Hall is seen as a positive. Although it's interesting, some of the dialogue we're hearing from the state as actually at least certain groups, certain interest groups are feeling like Zoom is not providing the kind of level of access or impact, and that they're feeling cut out of the picture. And so they're actually pressing to not allow any of this. They want to all be in person because they think they're more persuasive in person. So if their legislature is hearing things from both sides, where things land, we're not sure yet.
Thank you.
All it says there's going to be a lot of discussion on this issue.
I would echo Councilmember Abadamos's hopes for what I would call a hybrid system, where the council members can and should be in person like we used to, but allow the public to access it in a variety of menus. Zoom certainly is one of them, and all the others. I think that's important. It's interesting how there's a different point of view as far as excluding that, but I really think in terms of public input, it's a good thing. And if you do want to show up in person, go for it.
I think some of the comments this evening are from the public are certainly reflective before. The convenience, capacity, the access. And I think that's what Brown Act, the intent of it is to have public access to exactly for a certain population or needs. That works quite well. So I would expect there's been some conversation throughout the county and certainly at the League of California Cities about, some of this works quite well. How do we keep hang on to that once we move out of the pandemic restrictions? So I look forward to that.
Just further to your point, Mayor, the city and the areas that we could control have changed a lot of the way that we do business for the better. And the areas that we can control 100%, we've made the changes and we're not going back on a lot of them. A lot of our paperless efforts and a lot of our digital processing will continue post-pandemic. The one area that we don't have control necessarily around these state laws, and if they were to continue to allow, if they, being the state legislature, were to continue to allow this, then I'm sure we would come up with really creative ways to have access from all manners. So it's, it is really up to the state legislature to tell us whether or not we can continue. If it was up to us, we would provide all sorts of access, but there's the limiting factor right there. So we'd like to not have to go back to the old clumsy way of doing things and to continue the new way of doing it.
Yeah, like I commented at a previous meeting, the Brown Act was written before we had all this access in terms of electronic capacity. So
it was written before cell phones. It's just
yes.
Cell phones did not exist when the Brown Act was written.
I think you still put a coin in the machine to dial it. Okay, anything further, City Manager?
No, but I know Brent Cooper has a couple of updates he'd like to share.
Okay, Mr. Cooper.
All right. Good evening, Mayor and council members. Glad to see you tonight. Wanted to fill you in on a very full Planning Commission agenda last Thursday. The Planning Commission approved the Lemos Point Affordable Housing Project in Watson Ranch. Of course, this project is named after our beloved Fran Lemos. The streets there will be Fran Lemos Lane, and everyone will have a Fran Lemos address.
Very good.
Just pretty nice. But this project will provide 186 very affordable units. They are going all the way down to 30% area median income, which is very, very unusual. And the project provides a wide range of housing unit sizes, from studios to 3-bedroom units. So it's just going to be a terrific project. The applicant did an excellent job in preparing it, and the staff really pulled together to get through. It just took a couple of months from submittal to Planning Commission hearing. So we're all very proud of the project and the work everybody did, and and looking forward to this being constructed at the next about 18 months to 2 years is what the applicant's representative indicated at the meeting. So really good news. I want to let you know about that. A second item on the agenda were 2 individual food truck applications on private property. We haven't had this kind of application before, and it's a coincidence that we had 2 separate applications at the very same time. The Planning Commission reviewed that, were very, very deliberate in their thought process, and ultimately by a 4 out of 5 vote, agreed to deny the applications. Decisions by the Planning Commission can be appealed to the City Council, and so it's always possible there could be an appeal, in which case it would be brought forward to the City Council. But we'll wait and see what happens. But this is kind of a very unusual application, since we haven't had it this kind before, and then we had 2. And then finally, the Planning Commission had scheduled a workshop to talk about putting together permanent regulations in support of the fuel station moratorium. The first step in this process would be amending our general plan, since the general plan, originally adopted in the early 90s, has no policies about greenhouse gas emissions and climate change and some of those more recent issues. And so it's necessary to update the general plan to accommodate that in order to have a valid zoning regulations coming up. It was towards the end of the meeting, so we didn't get into a lot of staff presentation, but we did have a number of people that sat through the meeting and provided testimony. All of them were in favor of the city commencing and moving forward with regulations consistent with the fuel station moratorium. We'll be rescheduling this for the next Planning Commission meeting in June, but we'll be, of course, bringing this back to the City Council for your input coming up this summer. We wanted to be responsive to the council, not wanting to kind of leave this towards the end of the moratorium, kind of get going on it. And so we're doing that and expect to bring something to you later on this summer. So that's my update for you tonight.
Thank you. Very good. Busy. That's great news to hear. Any council comment? If not, thank you, Mr. Cooper.
Thank you.
Moving on to council committee reports and future agenda items. Let's start out with council committee reports. Notice we have several submitted already. Councilmember Papadopoulos, anything to for this evening?
No, but I do have a couple of future agenda items when we get there.
All right, very good. Councilmember Washington, anything further to add to yours?
No, nothing further. Matter of fact, Brent covered what I was going to bring up, so thank you, Brent.
All right. Councilmember Oro, anything to add to yours?
Nothing to add, sir.
All right, thank you. Vice Mayor Joseph?
Nothing to add, but I have a couple of future agenda items too. They may even overlap.
Well, on mine, I think about the only thing I would add, just more of a more current update. There was a great Memorial Day celebration that came together. I think we had somewhere in the neighborhood, Chief Ortiz estimated something like 200 people attended. Councilmember Washington, thank you very much for your part of the ceremony. That was very good. The real treat was Fran Lemos, who was attended, so it was great to see her again doing well. It's kind of one of those things where, Mercy, isn't it about time we had a little more opportunity for face-to-face with folks? It just really brings it home that we can do that. And I just want to thank everyone who was involved with putting together the event. It turned out very well and much appreciated by all of us. And with that, future agenda items.
None here.
Go ahead, Councilmember Papadopoulos.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have two, and it goes back to the Memorial Day celebration that we kind of skipped this weekend. I would like to request that even though we're late, we should still do a proclamation for Memorial Day if my council is amenable. And then the second part of that is Cindy, mucho kudos to her for putting on this event and with such short notice. But she requested that we revoke the resolution where we took that event away from volunteer groups and brought it to the council. I don't know about that resolution. That was before my time, but I feel like I sound like a broken record because I've talked so much about how involved our volunteers were, how involved I was as a volunteer, how that's what started my involvement in American Canyon when I was 13 years old. And I still don't feel like we're getting it right. I do appreciate the progress. I love that we created a sign up on the website for volunteers to join, but I still feel like we're missing the mark. And what I keep on referring to is more of what we saw this weekend with all of the volunteers coming together, putting on meaningful events and taking ownership of them. And I feel like we need to get back to that somehow. Our community keeps on asking for it. Frankly, they're screaming for it at this point, and we need to be responsive. It also saves the city money. We just had a budget presentation. We're going through a pandemic, less staff hours, not to cut anyone's hours, of course, but less overtime, more volunteers. It promotes engagement, and that's what we do here in American Canyon. So I would like us to have a discussion in that regard as well.
I think it'd be helpful to have that discussion. Certainly, there's a historical perspective as how it went from being a volunteer event to city managing them to now this request. And obviously, it's very evident that there's the interest in Basin and the community to make it more of a community oriented. So, yeah, I think it would be worthwhile to have that conversation.
I would concur. In fact, that was one of the items I wanted to revisit, the whole special events policy and that resolution in particular. And I certainly do think we should have had a memorial proclamation. So I would second both of Councilmember Abadamas's suggestions.
Thank you.
Are you? Anything further for future agenda items?
The only other item I wanted to ask for some council support on, we kind of addressed it a few months ago, but I think we ought to revisit this whole idea of how we handle written comments in a Zoom environment. And who knows, maybe the Zoom environment will go away and it will become moot. But I really do think that we've got to handle it differently, along the lines of somebody reading those comments, even if you just said, hey, we'll read it for the first 3 minutes, because if you submit a 20-page document, I don't want, I might want to read it, but I certainly don't want to spend 20 minutes reading it. But
oh yeah, I know from the county perspective, well, they hear from one of the supervisors to get something like 300 comments. I mean, well, you know, it would, and you raise a good point. How do we manage this? I mean, certainly public comment is valuable and required, and we should pay attention to it.
So, yeah, like I said,
But on the other hand, how do you
but I
handle
think-
volumes of it?
Yeah, we need to look at that and figure out what makes sense.
Well, maybe there's some best practices out there we can look at from other areas as well. But I would, yeah.
Okay.
I agree with that. Also, agenda items?
I agree with that as well, and we should probably just consider how to include written comments moving forward, even if there is no Zoom, since it's almost over.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, yeah, it's just like this evening, we got a list of letters received prior to the meeting. So, I mean, that's something we get as an attachment to our agenda, which is helpful to know. Okay. If there is nothing further?
Well, Mr. Mayor, on that, so I have three future agenda item topics. We'd like to get some clarification or at least formalization of that. So one of them was I'd like to bring back a Memorial Day proclamation. I'm assuming June 15th being our next meeting. That was the idea there. A motion and a second and a vote would be appropriate for our records.
Okay. Motion to.
I'll make the motion to bring back a Memorial Day proclamation at our June 15 council meeting.
I'll
second it.
Okay, motion and second. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Abadamos,
Yes.
Councilmember Oro,
Yes.
Councilmember Washington,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Joseph,
Yes.
Mayor Garcia.
Yes.
And then secondarily, we had something related to the special event resolution. Would also like council concurrence or memorialization of that. I've been doing research today on it. There does seem to be something from 2009, 2010 related to 4th of July and finances and some other things. So there's probably more digging that needs to happen. I'm not sure I'll be ready to bring back something on June 15th on that per se, but just some more digging we need to do on that. But if the council wants that as a future item.
So my thought is larger than just revisiting the resolution. It's kind of revisiting volunteer organizations or volunteering at city events in general, including the resolution.
Sure.
So I guess I'll make the motion to bring back a discussion item regarding volunteers at city events and the resolution that you just mentioned.
Second.
I just need a little clarification here. There's a relation, Councilmember O'Donnell says that include volunteers in relationship to city, what do we say, assistance with it or staff, or are you suggesting that it be all volunteer and no city involvement at all, or?
No, I'm suggesting that we have a conversation to figure out how to get back to including the community more. So like,
Yeah.
I mean,
Okay.
I used to volunteer at the recognition ball, but there was still city staff there. There's just more opportunities for people to engage.
Understood.
Yeah, and I would say, provide, when that comes back, it would be nice to have a history of it, because I've heard bits and pieces of it from different folks, but I don't know the true history of when it changed and how it changed and why it changed.
Well, I think I can provide some perspective on that.
I can too. So you're lucky to have some long-timers on the council.
I think they was referred to in a different world, long haulers.
Yeah.
I think, Mayor, I understand the idea behind this one. So
Okay, all right. So we have a motion and a second. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Alvarado,
Yes.
Councilmember Oro,
Yes.
Councilmember Washington,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Joseph,
Yes.
Mayor Garcia.
Yes. Anything further?
the last. Oh, sorry.
I'm sorry. I just wanted to say in the future, I would like to request that if events like this are being canceled, they should be brought back to the council first. Because these are
Sure.
huge traditional city events that we've had
Yeah.
forever. And, I mean, you can see how upset our residents are over it. So.
Sure, we didn't cancel Memorial Day. We had the same sort of format that we had last year. But I understand the point about canceling things. On the public comments, I do think we're going to have some more clarity once we get an understanding about Brown Act. And we can certainly bring something back, but we're going to have to kind of feel out the way July 20 looks, and we have to do some adaptation. So my request, at least for that particular item, is let's see how July 20 looks, and maybe from there, think about what changes might be needed. And I understand and want to provide the maximum amount of participation that we can. There are some limitations we're going to have to sort out, and we don't even know all of them yet. So we are going to try and keep as high level of participation as we can. And let's see how July 20 looks before necessarily bringing back an item for council consideration.
I'm okay with, rethinking this in August or something like that, so we see what it is that we need to revisit.
Now, the state legislature's got to go do their ruminations over this thing as well. It's, I think there's a lot of interest in maintaining the value that we get in this format. On the other hand, we need to be able to include everyone, all aspects of that, and comply with the law. All right, if there's nothing further, thank you all. Very good evening tonight.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Night.